Good evening, everyone. Today is April 10th, 2024. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. Effective 16/2023, the public is welcome to attend in person. Alternatively, the public may attend through the Zoom link on the agenda. Meeting notice will reflect that the meeting is Zoom only. As the recent amendments to open meeting law allows, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note the in-person meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological. So I'll call this meeting to order and state that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. And I ask that you join me with the pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are taking our agenda a little differently tonight. We have a CBT general advisory meeting and update that we wanted to do early before our meeting so that we didn't really need to rush it into the rest of our meeting later on. So we wanted to give you plenty of time to interact with us and give the community an update. So with that said, I would
This
love
meeting is being recorded.
I would love for us to do introductions so that everybody knows who's here around the table. So with Amy.
I'm Amy Pascarell, I'm the assistant superintendent.
I'm the superintendent.
Jeremy McKean, school committee.
Laura Weason, school committee.
Melissa Friends, school committee. Kathy Clancy, school committee.
Bill Melvin, school committee.
Heath Minio, school committee.
Tyler Abel, school committee.
Mike Flopard, sir.
Albert.
Automotive.
Genius.
Yeah, automotive, I guess, yeah.
Hold on. Brenda Wasik, CVTE coordinator.
James Tuck, principal of Gloucester High School. Tim Sanborn, advisory.
Maria Puglisi, recording secretary.
Oh, the meeting just.
You ready?
The meeting disconnected and then it just came back.
Mine shows, it looks like people are on.
Yeah, all right.
We're connected, right?
Yeah.
All right, so who's leading this?
So tonight we are starting with our career vocational technical education update. That includes a joint meeting with the CBTE advisory board. And so Director Brenda Waslick and James Cook, Mr. Sanborn, Mr. Pavaza, and Tyler, I don't know your last name, sorry.
Abel.
And Mr. Dave all are here to give us updates on how our CBT program is going this year. And I'll hand it off to Principal Cook and Ms. Waslick.
Right. Just trying to get the sharing going over here, Ben.
Okay.
So, Brenda has a presentation that she's prepared, very similar to the presentation we've had over the last several years, in some more detail and with some more exciting things happening in the programs that you'll see in the slides. The slides are, it's a security and privacy issue with Brenda for the slides right now, and it's the sharing.
Is that, it's not a Zoom issue, is it?
Doesn't sound it.
No. Is it a presentation share with me through Google?
Yep.
Google Drive?
Yep.
You do that, then I can show it.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so it's sharing bad. Did you get it?
So you should turn off the mic and sound. Yeah, right?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
You're on.
So this is the year in review so far, as it were, with vocational education.
Many of you will remember this great day where the students got their T-shirts for each program representing so many of the community partners that we have, and it's a good place to start because it shows much of the growth that has taken place over the last year is really due to some of the folks who are here tonight. Tim particularly was very instrumental in this, was working with Brenda on this endeavor, but it really pulled the whole community together, including many folks here tonight, to get the students these T-shirts that are part of the pride you show in being part of these programs. In the slides to come, you'll also see other partnerships and students going out and working in our community. And one of the biggest things that's happening is building the partnerships throughout Gloucester.
So we focusing on workforce readiness, we partnered with Brunt Workwear. And our students were given 130 boots from Brunt. I had spoken to the CVT director over in Salem, and he said, well, I contacted them too, but they brought 6 pair. I thought, oh, that was a good thing for us. Again, with the T-shirts, you saw that opening slide. There were so many sponsors, we split them up so they were specific to shop. So the students in auto are wearing sponsors from auto, et cetera. Each student got 5 uniforms, so there was no excuse for the daily wearing of the shirts. Some of the things that we're focusing on, we're partnered with the Girls in Trades. In the fall, they have a conference and career fair. The local International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers hosts it. And they have apprenticeships from all trades all over the area that talk to participants about different opportunities that are local and that are in the city. The Mass Girls in Trades, we have the Leadership Summit in Blackstone. We're taking a group of 8 girls, that's the max, down to Blackstone in May 1st. We partnered with Tools and Tiaras, so that was what a very laid back group of girls that came up during homeroom, and we connected with women on the work site. So they'd be on their break and they'd be explaining what they were doing. Some were welding, some were construction, different things every day. So they got to see themselves as they spoke. And WT Rich came in and held a panel discussion, and they walked in with the HR director and 4 women from the various construction sites around the city that are managing all the projects. So that was quite rich discussion. So we're working on pathways to work. We have a list of local sponsors that have taken students, applied materials, Beacon Marine, the Building Center, Crocker Boatyard, Dynatemp HVAC, Eastbound Ventures, Fast Lane Auto Fleet, Gloucester Marine, JPL Landscape, Keith Alves Carpentry, Sullivan Auto, and Timberline. We're growing this list. Our workforce, our work study numbers have doubled, except for electrical, and that was because they had strong numbers last year, but this year they only had 1 senior to go out. So it wasn't because there weren't opportunities, it was because the perennial problem is that we don't have enough students for the jobs that are available locally. And we really want to make that connection. So part of that initiative, we're going to start with the rising juniors in May, bring the seniors back in from the shops, talk to the sophomores. We have a Google form to try to get them in the planning stages of thinking about what they're going to do, because senior year is really too late. We want them to think about, it could be 4-year college, it could be work study. We have an advanced man student who's building boats, trades oriented, whatever you want to do. If it's taking over the family business, whatever it is, let's start thinking in that sophomore year about what we're going to do. So we're going to collect that data because it's a Google form. We'll have it in an Excel spreadsheet so the teachers can refer to it and help students with the next steps. This is the enrollment numbers from 2020 moving forward, and it's kind of up and down. One of the one of the bonuses, although advanced manufacturing had 5 top choices, we were able to fill based on 5 second choices and 5 third choice. So all the students in advanced manufacturing have an interest in the program. All of the programs are full. They're all first choice students, so auto has your 30. Electrical and carpentry each have 15. Everyone has a waiting list except advanced man has room for 1 more student placement. So it's pretty solid numbers. The waiting list numbers are in the next slide. So for automotive, there's 12 waitlisted, carpentry 5, and electrical 3 waitlisted.
Let's go backwards. So on the bottom are the number of students selecting,
That's the total
total number of students selecting.
selecting vocational education. It's a type.
Coming from middle school, correct?
Yes, O'Malley, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah,
That's what that was.
yeah. So where they stand now, we're fully enrolled. Again, there's 1 advanced manufacturing, so a student may decide they want to stay in the program. If they're waitlisted for auto, they can be given an opportunity to go to the advanced manufacturing.
Oh, Laura, go ahead. Sorry.
Brenda, can I just ask you a question? Would you
Yes.
just go back to that? Just on the numbers, so in each of the years, I mean, the numbers are quite different. So if they're fully enrolled and there's 104 students, how come there were 154 students?
Those are these are the applicants, I think was the key thing. These are the students who applied.
Oh,
So
There's only space for,
the 15 for each teacher. In auto, we have 2 teachers, so we have 30 spots in each of the others.
so the total is the 98.
It'll be 75.
Well,
So 15, go with the
so,
top.
so then,
Yeah, 75.
15 advanced manufacturing, 30 in automotive. She says first year. This is
Yeah.
first year.
Yeah.
15 for carpentry tech and 15 for electricity.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
So so the parentheses are enrolled,
I see.
Yeah.
and those are the maximum except for advanced manufacturing, which is at 14, but could hold 15.
Okay, so the bottom number is just how many applied.
Yes,
No, well, how many were accepted so far and were not waitlisted? They are fully in the program and they have not been waitlisted.
So the bottom.
Bottom.
Oh, the bottom
Yeah.
is how many applied, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
And that's these are first year, ninth graders.
Yeah,
Right.
there are a mix of some sophomores too, 10th graders.
That made the decision to get involved in CPT. in their sophomore year.
Thank you. That's right. Those are the wait lists. Got it.
Okay, thank you.
So in carpentry, they're looking down at the Heritage Center. They're building a huge dock in shed workspace. They are also gonna do some roofing work. And they're gonna build a deck for storage space in another space down at the Heritage Center. So they've been busy since January. That is not the picture of the Heritage Center. I believe I have one later, in the white behind the words. That's a picture of the deck, if you could. They are building the picture, they're building half a house in electrical so that they can get exposure to residential work. The electrical program does a lot of work around the school and it's all commercial, and commercial and residential, as we knew from our other meeting from Mr. Tamina, are very different. So carpentry's building the house. Bob had advanced manufacturing make some meters so the students could have practice reading meters from residential work. They built 36 meters in advanced manufacturing to put into this setup. So each student could have their own meter to work with and learn the skills.
Where are they building half this house?
In electrical,
In the electrical
The shop.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Big idea.
So, and then they'll rip it out and then they'll build it again. After they do their residential wiring. We've partnered with Career Connections. It's an online curriculum. Steve Abel met with the representative and it very much mirrored what he had already been doing. And one of the benefits to it is at the end of the year, the the rep or they will come in from the apprentice program from the carpentry union and interview the students, and typically takes 2 as an apprenticeship. So that's just another pathway we're building out for the students to go and work. That's the mini house, and Steve Abel is hosting for the middle schoolers a mini camp for a week after school's over. So that way we can try and get the word out. We need to try and get the word out to the younger set so they understand what's here. I heard often from some parents, didn't know that, from the open house from the 8th grade, didn't know they had vocational. So we need to try and work. That's one of our challenges that we need to do. We're redoing the dust collection system that's connected to cabinet making and carpentry, and then doing some maintenance because the maintenance hasn't been done. And try to get the air quality much more improved in both of those areas. And that looks like it's gonna happen. So. Electrical got new lockers. They replaced the ones from 1960, 1970, 1980, and they look beautiful. The students installed 4 new machines in advanced manufacturing, an e-mill, 2 lathes, and a CNC mill. They finished this week. So Haas is coming in Friday. The setup will be all set. There's going to be an adult program through Mass Hire over the summer for 10 individuals, so they can get placement out to work. And that might be another avenue for students that have graduated and maybe were out in the world and haven't had a job yet or want to do something different.
Who's doing that program?
Mass Hire.
So is the school benefiting, is the program benefiting, or are we getting the equipment in return for
They pay,
offering the?
yes, we are benefiting.
Okay,
Because not only they serve, they have connections, so I'm able to go to conferences,
okay.
talk to other schools. I went Tuesday, it was a meeting, it was a very small meeting, about the same amount of people with Dr. Tutwiler. And the schools and the businesses expressed their concerns. We brainstormed ideas about how to reach the younger set at the middle schools, things like that. They also paid $20,000 for the installation materials. So you get a machine dropped in,
Yeah.
it's gotta be hooked up electrically.
Right.
The air has to be hooked up, and then you call the company to set up, and that's what's happening. Actually, I think it's tomorrow. The final machine will be
And they're
installed by.
covering the cost of that.
They covered the cost of the electrical materials, which was almost $20,000. So and that's gonna give us more workstations for the regular classroom.
The summer program is a CNC program, is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, it's CNC milling.
Yeah.
Specifically, yeah. And that's hopefully that it could be parents, it could be, anybody wants to make a career change. The advanced manufacturing is so desperate for help. Every meeting I go to, they express the same thing. We've got to get people into these jobs. They're very lucrative. And people can move up, as Mr. Abel can probably tell you. From his own experience. We're working with the city, and I've been talking to Gemma. And we were having a discussion, and she said, well, one of my grants has been on hold for about 6 months. And I said, why is that? She goes, I can't get an electrician. I said, are you serious? We've got one of the best electricians in the city. So I bartered with her, and I said, well, Bob can do your scope for the GAP and for the culinary work in return for maybe helping us out with some of the removal of gas stoves and dishwashers to get the space ready for medical assisting. So we're hoping to do that under the same grants and kind of cross over with the city. So we're hoping that can come to fruition.
Sorry.
Advanced manufacturing, we've got the 4 new machines, 4 new workstations for kids. We've got the meters, which I had mentioned before, that the kids did for the residential work. Another summer mini camp for advanced manufacturing that will be for a week, the week school ends. And the adult training program, which gives us connections in the industry as well.
Brenda, you or maybe Tyler could talk about a little, you said there's a real need in the industry for advanced manufacturing work. But I just don't know exactly what does that mean Like, what sort of jobs or what sort of, what's the work?
Where I'm working, they're looking for people constantly. The real struggle is just finding people who have like a mechanical aptitude and want to learn. Like quite a few of the people who we've hired and stuff like that, they're kind of just there to collect a check and weren't really interested in what they're doing. But I think it needs to be put out there more, that it's like a lot of the stuff in manufacturing, like CNC manufacturing and all that, you're building stuff that has a very, how could I say it, a very important purpose, like.
We saw mission critical.
Exactly,
Mission
like
critical
turbine
parts.
engine parts and submarine parts and all sorts of different stuff. And a lot of people get, there's like a stigma against machine shops about being dirty and all this stuff, but in the aerospace industry, you really can't. Like, where I work, it's pretty spotless. It's not dirty work. It's just hard work and there's a lot of it. So it's a
And
lot
where
of
where do you
hours.
work?
I work at Fleet Machine in West Gloucester.
So it's really, like you said, an interest, a mechanical aptitude to some degree. But it also sounds like folks would train people, so you don't have to come with too many skills. Some background probably helps, right?
Yeah.
But they're really good jobs, right?
I started out working on cars when I was like 14, 15 and just messing around in the garage and stuff. And I didn't go to school for CNC manufacturing or anything. And, 21 years old, I got into it about 2 years ago and I'm making near $30 an hour without a college education, benefits, unlimited overtime. So if you want to work, money can be made.
Very thankful, it's very helpful.
One of the common laments of the business people at the brainstorming session was that there does exist that group that just wants to come in, work and get a paycheck and that's it. But they want to train for managers, middle management. They want people to move out. And part of the training we talked about was also linking people to those mid-level training programs. They're going to give people a pay bump and bring that middle management in because they can't find them either.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I'm only saying this because I'm in the industry, I represent a big company that has 120 CNC machines, is being a programmer, like a CNC programmer. That's another kind of side road that you can get on and very lucrative
There's
business.
lots of different niches, it's not all milling or all lathe,
Right.
they're all, doing all that stuff. There's programmers, you have people who maintenance the machines, you have just all sorts of different, roles in the shop. And if you work hard and you're receptive of what they're trying to teach you, you can move up quite a bit. I started out just doing deburring and stuff like that, cleaning up all the parts that were all machined and stuff. And now I'm setting up the machines and running through programs and, turning blocks of metal into parts that go in airplane engines. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, right, and that's the work we teach our kids.
Yeah.
And it's better, that sort of thing, like that.
Where I work,
Not make airplane parts, but they're learning set machine, that sort of thing.
yeah, we actually just took on one of the students that's currently in the program where I work in Gloucester. So it's
Thank you.
pretty sweet to be able to show them what's going on in the industry and kind of drive them to want to do more.
And the second one is going there tomorrow. So there'll be two.
Great. I did not know that.
Yep. Sanders on his way.
Let's see tomorrow.
Yep.
We're gonna get to that management position.
Oh, yeah, that's Sander right there.
It's the next one.
He's the next one. He was doing the meters. He was working on the meters for the residential work. And that's a picture of him working on the meters. So for automotive, they've got huge transferable skills. One of their students is doing work study for HVAC. An HVAC company. He just got a certificate. He's on the road, he's learning, he's moving up. They have real world learning. We're looking at, don't know if we'll get it. I'm working on a CEC grant to maybe transform that small shop into something that looks like the modern day shops that are around. and getting new equipment and augmenting what they do with hybrid and EV training as well. So we'll see, that's a question mark, but
Keep trying.
Yep.
Keep going.
Skills Capital Grant, the announcements are coming out April 14th, so cautiously optimistic on that. And we'll get some funds for the programs. So medical assisting, we took a 1-year deferral. As you know, the initial costs are huge, are a huge lift. Once those initial costs are gotten, it should be doable once we have that piece. So as I had said before, I'm partnering with the city, hopeful that we can get the gas stoves and the dishwashers out of there. And then maybe our construction department can fix the ceiling and do the painting, like then we can take over. Emily Siegel from GEF has got 3 years of disposables for the medical assisting program once it's implemented. Things like Band-Aids, phlebotomy needles, etc. The next round is coming out this month for the capital skills, and hopefully I'm going to throw all the initial costs at it and see what happens.
And so this is obviously a couple things on this is, it's taken a lot of work to get here. We set out this path, I think 3 years ago, Jane, before we ever met Brenda.
Yeah.
And well, a number of reasons for the delay. One of them is our funding gap or budget. But the other piece is that it takes taking a lot of pieces to put together. The room itself and disposing of some things that have been there for a while, but then also seeking the funding and acquiring the funding, which Brenda and James, and then also GF and Emily Siegel have been doing a lot of work on, and really appreciate Emily's partnership and leadership on this. But we think it's a necessary move to pause the opening or delay the opening till September 2025, but it's also quite helpful anyways as well. So, but it's something we're still committed to, and we see a lot of growth potential for it, a lot of expanding the demand for CBTE as well, and certainly like all of our program, real demand in the workplace. And so we're creating some really nice pathways and opportunities for our students. So.
Can I ask on that, do you have the schedule figured out to do that? Because you know how you have to do the introductory course, that kind of changes the amount of kids that go through the program for introduction. Do you have that part figured out yet? Are you ready to go with that and just wait?
Exploratory, is that the?
Yeah, the exploratory.
Exploratory, yes, yeah, we puzzled it out, that's also
Okay,
entails some costs that we'll be using next year to help work towards building to that, right? So we're stretching it out over a couple of years. Because you got more students going through a shop,
right.
that means more consumables, right? Like everybody's building
That's
the
why I
cool
asked,
thing that tries to hook them into what's cool about advanced man and what's cool about electrical, right? So we plan, Brenda's a great job of breaking that down, working with me on that. And the teachers in partnering with other area schools have the curriculum, they've done a lot of work on the curriculum. So the X amount of time for each exploratory, what are the students gonna be doing? It's highly safety first, right? So they gotta do the safety and they gotta do, the project orientation and then a period of reflection. You have to think about what I just did and is this for me, right? Is
that the chewing?
chewing?
Yeah.
Like we did, yeah.
Yeah.
So we built all that in to a schedule for a semester. And then after the semester, they make their choice and then they spend a semester doing the year one of a kind of finishing. So yeah, I think yep.
And James, I just want to say, James has been instrumental with logistics because there's a lot of different things being thrown around, and he's just a great resource.
Biggest principal supporter of vocational technical education I've ever met. Good for you.
That's very much so.
Support the committee and having Brenda on board is, I think I was talking to a couple of you about at the program, event right before this, that having Brenda on board really allows us to imagine transformative things, right? And imagine what things could be and think about all the partnerships and, including the folks that are in the room today with us. Brenda's able to really cultivate these relationships and keep building and expanding that. Then our students get jobs, right out of it, so.
And save the date, so May 9th, we're gonna do the showcase again, we're gonna expand it by some awards. One student from each shop will be presenting their portfolio work, and we're gonna start the portfolio work. We've added the juniors on this year, and next year we're gonna have them start sooner with sophomore year, so.
I do want to say, speaking of which, Melissa, you brought that to, I don't know,
Portfolios.
several years ago. And the importance of portfolios. And so when, it's been something we were working on expands, growing from the seniors and going backwards. So they
So I'm
have
not
this. as
gonna be able
their
to
resume.
make that, but is there a way to, because I'll be away on vacation, is there a way to get a sample of what a portfolio looks like? I'm curious to see.
They're
Absolutely.
online, right?
Yeah, I can show you a
They
link.
will be online. okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Excellent.
we'll wait till then though, because
Yeah.
they're still working.
Not that they'll wait till the last minute at all to
Never.
finish all the.
Never, they would never do. But thank you for all your support too, because the school committee definitely, and Mayor Verga, without you behind us, then, nothing happens for us.
I'm sure
Thank
if Mr. Vaz or Mr. Sandberg want to add anything just in terms of, just in terms of the work that you're doing or support or just how things are going with the tech.
I think we've got so much work to do. Forgive me, I'm getting over a cold. I'm not. But there's so much leverage we can do. You think of these T-shirts. We did that in 60 days, and we only went at bat 2 or 3 times. We didn't really leverage the supply houses, manufacturers, the OEMs. When I think I hear Brenda talk about getting equipment, like the first things that, I came out of the HVAC industry years ago, and I'm sick and saying, I'll pick up the phone and call Lennox, or I'll call a carrier, or I'll call some of these manufacturers, and we'll cut the ribbon on their equipment. So I think we're just scratching the surface of leveraging. Because doggone it, if you're working in the city or in Cape Ann, you gotta give back to the communities. Certainly, that's what I founded my company on. And there's so much more we can do. And you're working real hard on these grants. But doggone it, most of the dollars are out the street. And we need to go after those dollars. And remind the contractors and manufacturers that charity begins here at Cape Ann. So that's just more I can do.
Very well too. That's a good role.
That's very helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say a huge thank you to all the advisory groups, because without you, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing, right? So I commend you for your time and your efforts and all that you bring to our programs, because we couldn't exist without you. So, very cool. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Well, thank you so much for presenting. Always exciting to hear about what's going on. And the kids, when you see the kids, it's just evident how they present themselves and what they present that they're doing and talk about it. Really, they're really good communicators about why they're doing what they're doing, and their enthusiasm for what they're doing shows a lot.
Brenda, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, as you said, everyone in the room is supporting us having a full-on director and you are bringing in so many different people, partners, opportunities, grants, development, but all those pieces, and it really can't happen without you. So really appreciate your leadership.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
I got a baseball game later.
Double header tonight.
We're losing.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
You better get there next one.
Play the whole game.
Damn swamp spot. People, come on. Thanks for coming in, Helen. I live right around the corner. When you said West Gloucester. Right off. That's
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Thank you.
Motion support.
Damn years ago. They made it out to the city.
We did?
I worked with Brenda for years, so that tax.
Oh, did you? Yeah, so you seem to know.
Yeah, so she's a good old friend and she ran the graphic art shop there for years.
Oh, yeah. He's over there. Yeah. She's an all-star.
Yes.
No, we haven't been able to.
Training might have gone also.
Sometimes I feel that someone maybe need their touch. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, something. Yes.
Okay, I'll move on to oral communications. Yep. If there is anybody, we have nobody in attendance with us in person. If there's anybody attending via Zoom, you can raise your hand and welcome to speak. Mary Ann Boucher.
Thank you, Mary Ann Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. First, I want to say in regards to the vocational department, my son-in-law was involved in the electrical department and won the electrical award in high school and went on to a 4-year college while summering at a business, at a local electrical business here in Gloucester. And he went on and made electrical his lifelong business. Somebody's talking. He's a life,
We can hear you, Mary Ann.
his profession now is with a company here in Gloucester. He's a master electrician. And the vocational department really does some amazing things for the kids in our city. And it would be, I don't know if you do this or not, but it would be great to have Gloucester alumni who is or has been involved in the vocational part of GHS to come back and talk to the kids and let them know their journey and how they came to their place in their job. On another note, I came here to ask, and maybe this is something that the vocational department can do. I do not know if the school committee is still considering naming the playground at the new school after Joseph Mados. And I know that it was brought up several times during the many, many meetings that you had. And if it is still going to be named after him, maybe the vocational department can do a plaque. But I just wanted to come on to talk about the vocational department and what a success it's been for my son-in-law. And like I said, he's become a master electrician, won the electrical award at GHS. And, you know, it's people like him that should be speaking to the kids in our schools to let them see, you know, people that have been there. I appreciate it. I wish there was more for the girls. And I'm really sad to see that we don't have a preschool group anymore, because I know that or teachers, some type of vocational, or not vocational, but some type of teacher classes for our young students. I know we can surely use them. So I don't know. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Next person is April Padua. Name and address, please.
April, I think you're muted, baby.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm April Hautala. I work at 134R Eastern Ave. Oh, hold on. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yep.
Okay. I live at 134R Eastern Ave. And I'm calling today as a taxpayer.
You muted again. It looks like you pressed mute.
I would like to ask our mayor how he is going to support our public schools. There's lots of pictures of him online, posting, holding up big checks with large amounts of money, going to different organizations in town, which is great. I appreciate that. But what about his staff? What about we just built this beautiful new school, and there's people inside making poverty level pay. It's not okay. So I would like to know how the mayor is going to explain having new schools, not paying staff properly, and how is he going to move forward to fund our schools the right way? I keep hearing that there's not a lot of funding, money's tight, but he's, flashing himself online, showing pictures with large checks amount of money. How are we going to work this out? So that's my question for the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
I see no further hands. So that ends oral communications. Recognitions. We are having wonderful things to celebrate and recognize. Laura?
Well, it's not really recognition because it hasn't happened yet, but this Thursday and Friday night at the Gloucester Stage Company, the Beeman 5th grade will be performing Matilda Junior. It hasn't been publicized in so many places, so I wanted to make sure people know. It's Thursday at 7, Friday at 7. You can get tickets on gloucesterstage.com. And there have been amazing, the music teacher at Beeman, Miss Merchant, and others have really been working hard to make this happen very quickly. So just wanted to invite the community and the schools community to this amazing performance this week.
Go ahead.
Yep, Kath, I just want to recognize, I went to the performance of Mean Girls here at the high school, and it was simply outstanding. The cast and the crew, I've been to a lot of school plays, but that one really seemed to resonate with a lot of people, and it seemed to really, it was just a top-notch production from start to end. So appreciate the work that they put into it.
And they look like they're having a lot of fun as well.
They did look like they
A
had
lot of fun, great choreography
Yes, great.
also.
Yep.
Just the pride and the joy of, you could just see they loved every bit of interacting with each other and the roles they were playing. It's really just fabulous. Yeah. Thank you. We are expecting student advisory, but they are not with us yet. So next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they'd like to know?
I just have a question on something. So the out-of-state field trip, where are they going? The DECA honors from April 27th to May 1st?
I believe
California.
Yeah. Okay. It's the students who moved on to the next level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved in seconds, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Next we have deliberations on education issues and the superintendent's report.
Great. Thank you, Kathy. So good morning.
Long
Sorry,
day.
strong
I
tonight.
think it's all right. We're not-
Good evening, everybody. So I'm gonna go through a few things here. First, I'll do my superintendent's report. Just on some things, updates about a bunch of things that are going on around our schools. All excitement here, as we enter spring, obviously just a couple of days, as someone said, 2 more wake ups until vacation starts.
Yes.
Sounds kind of nice, I bet, for a lot of people. Great. So I'm just presentation here. So, as we say, every day matters here in the Gloucester Public Schools, and everybody belongs. Tonight, we're going to go over a few things. First, update about some things that are going on around the schools, as we do every school meeting. Then, an update on the FY 2025 budget. and also going forward. And then we'll give an update on East Veteran School commissioning and closeout as we sort of head towards the official end of the building project. We'll give an update on that. So first and foremost, I want to start off with going at the high school. So we just mentioned Mean Girls, and as a collaboration between our Gloucester High School mental health ambassadors and the theater program, and also the Gloucester Youth Advisory Council, they launched a coordinated effort to show Gloucester the value of kindness. So students came up with the idea of hashtag GS Pledges Pink, and the idea was in the building on the theme or sort of the theme of that the themes that Mean Girls raises. Wanted to make sure that folks understood the lesson from Mean Girls, which is kindness really matters, being kind matters, helping people out matters, supporting people matter, and also to combat bullying, and body shaming. So just really appreciate our student leaders, like they do in so many ways in our schools, especially Gloucester High, helping their friends and colleagues, helping the community on some really important areas around, in this case, being kind, supporting each other, and really combating bullying or hurtful behavior. The Interact Club. So again, it's a community leaders project here for our Interact Club. They're doing they did their 15th annual pizza taste off on April 3rd, and it was a benefit to the American Cancer Society. And that took place, I think, at the cruise port. And as you can see there, a number of bests for pizza in the city. So best overall was Cape Ann Pizza. Best crust was Cape Ann Lane's. Best sauce was Ellie's Pizza. Best special pizza from Kettle Cove Catering was lobster pizza. Because I had that sounds pretty decadent. And our student leaders in the Interact Club, which works alongside Rotary, they earned more than $2,000 for the American Cancer Society. So really appreciate the Interact Club and sort of that 15th annual community event, which is great. Oh, there's some more pictures of it. Local restaurant, 9 local restaurants participated. There's a pretty big crowd there at Blue Sport. So excellent. Solar eclipse, of course, was on Monday, and a bunch of our schools and a lot of our students and staff were participating and helped people do it. Our Millie Science Department did a great job organizing a get together after school there. And just before 3:30, as folks know, the moon covered about 93% of the sun's face. But the Amelia engineering specialist Dave Brown and also Amy Donnelly were involved. They arranged for eclipse-related activities inside the Science Center, including something called selective ping pong, which I'm not quite sure what that is, arts and crafts and sort of stuff, and then made sure helped out students to view the eclipse safely. So there's Mr. Brown and the students using looks like Oreo cookies and cheese balls to model the eclipse. And there you see a bunch of students gazing up at the eclipse there with their eclipse glasses. So every year at O'Malley, we have a Project 351 ambassador. And that is part of a statewide program, 351 meaning the cities and towns and communities in Massachusetts. So from every school district and town, there's a Project 351 ambassador. This year, Margaret Seal, who's an 8th grader at O'Malley. And she's organized a clothing drive to support children in need. So part of the work for our Project 351 ambassadors is it's about service and leadership and kindness. And so Margaret has organized collection boxes at O'Malley that will be distributed to Cradles to Crayons. So really appreciate, again, another example of student leadership, and really appreciate Margaret's support, leadership, and her work to help those families in need. We are in the season of backyard growers revisiting and doing our spring planting. I actually saw an azalea bloom today, a green circle. That was very shocking and wonderful sight. But also our kids are doing work with backyard growers to get their gardens growing. And you see here, Gloucester preschool students planting lettuce, working with Meg Tenzar, who's one of the school program managers for backyard growers. And they're making rows, the soil, they're sprinkling seeds there, making garden beds. They're gonna be growing 5 different types of lettuce, including the all-important kale. So they'll be doing that. There's some more photos. They are on the left-hand side, getting ready, warming up by stretching like trees. And you see there on the right-hand side, them planting the seeds for the greens. There's Plum Cove, a really shout out and appreciation to the Plum School PTO who distributed solar eclipse glasses to Plum Cove school students and staff. And we're able to send those home so our families could look at the eclipse from home or wherever they were Monday afternoon. There's some more. Clearly some, it's a little bit after school to view the eclipse. And West Parish, I would say all of our elementary schools, and actually high school and middle school as well, are very good at celebrating things. And which I really appreciate a lot, because celebrations matter, joy matters at the time, obviously. And here's West Parish School celebrating Red Sox Day, which I guess was March 28th, opening day of Major League Baseball. Not opening day at Fenway, opening day of Major League Baseball. And that was, looks like kids dressed up in Red Sox gear. And also they tied in, as they always do, tied in some curriculum work to it. So they're doing baseball themed math games and also math problems at their grade level. So first base, second base, third base, home run problems. Excellent. So really appreciate that. Some more photos of Red Sox Day, opening day there at West Parish. And again, salad planting at East Veterans. So Meg Tenzar and Backyard Growers, they get around obviously to all our schools, including O'Malley. And here first graders are also digging holes and planting lettuce seeds in the garden beds. So that's obviously the first time that we've had the gardens planted at East Veterans in their beds that are in the back of the school. I think there are a whole lot of beds, maybe 5 or 6 of them. So that's great to get those going. And they planted seeds for carrots, potatoes, beets, and squash. We maintained through the summer and picked in the fall. Some more seed planting, so getting a lot of kids, first graders there, helping out. So that's just the update from some things that are happening around our schools. We now switch to our budget presentation. As we begin, so I'm going to share some information and keep everyone updated on the budget and where we stand in the budget process. So as folks know, and I'll show in a moment, is where we are in the budget process. It takes a matter of many months from when we get our initial planning, and even as we start hopefully presenting the process in January and February. The process is still in development. The budget's in development, but also our work with the city is also happens over time as well. So when we're prepared to understand what our budget needs are sometime in January or February, the city budget continues to be developed from the various departments into March, April, and then the very beginning of May. So those two timelines don't add up, don't match up, obviously, but it's something we just work through every year, and we're continuing to do that. So we have more information tonight about what, as you might remember, a couple of weeks ago, we just heard from the mayor and got the initial city appropriation for the schools. And we'll talk about that tonight. But we've just gotten that news, basically. So it was new information. So now we've been able to work with that information for a couple of weeks. And tonight I'll present some updates, both about what it means for the schools at this point, but also the work we're doing with the city and the work we'll continue to do with our staff to make sure people understand the ramifications and possible impact of that. I do want to say, and I'll keep on saying that, the school committee, myself, are committed to keep on working with the mayor and his team to do everything we can to close the gap as much as possible. That's hard work that takes time and happens over time, but really just working as much as we can in every way we can to support that work. So I don't say that lightly, but it's super important, and that work continues. Moment here, I want to get the presentation going. So there is some stuff here that, you know, it's hard to know when people tune in, so there is some information that I've gone over before, but it's important no matter where, when people join in, that we get them up to speed and know where things have been. But I'll go through some of this quickly because it is repetitive, but still important information. So we're here on April 10th. And in the green bar there, you can see that's about halfway through the process in terms of the many steps we did. So we're talking to the school committee tonight and the members of the public and our school staff about where the budget is now. The next step will be moving forward, and some of these dates may change, but the next step really have a public hearing on the budget. And then the school committee ultimately votes on a budget to submit to the mayor and city council. We meet with the city council, B&F subcommittee meeting. And then once the city council approves the school's budget, it comes back to the school committee for their final vote. So that really goes into June as it does every year. And right now we're a couple months from the end of that process. So at this point, as we said before, cities let us know that they can fund $3 million of the $6.1 million the school requires for level funded budget. The level funded budget is level services and programs. So essentially doing what we're doing with students and our staff are doing this year, same level of staffing as we would have next year. Okay. In order to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about that $6.1 million. We've been requesting in really sort of two different approaches. I'll talk more about that tonight as well. But folks should know that we are obviously facing a budget shortage, and that is happening across the North Shore of Massachusetts. That is for many different reasons, all of which are affecting us, including special education costs, obviously inflation, but also the ending of federal COVID relief dollars. Many districts are really facing some significant shortfalls, just like Gloucester as well. So I always want to talk about this. We are aligning our budgets and our school budgets with our plan for ongoing improvement, and our 4 priorities in those areas, which are deepening student belonging and engagement, strengthening instruction, and better connecting general education and special education, strengthening social emotional learning and mental health support, and strengthening special education through improved coordination of services and specialized instruction. These are the areas we've been working on many levels across our schools the last 2+ years, really trying to really develop a core of belonging and engagement for our students, making sure that every student's getting high quality core instruction every single day, and they're guaranteed that. And also supporting students who have needs in areas of social emotional learning and mental health support, because without that support, they can't fully engage in our schools and in learning. And also, of course, make sure we're better and better able to support our special education students. We are doing this at a time when there's increases in special education that have happened for a number of years. As I mentioned, reduction in state aid in previous years increases, also the end of COVID relief. And those combine to make a difficult fiscal picture. I won't go through all these right now, but it's just an example in each priority area of areas we are definitely improving on and strengthening. Work we've been doing and areas we've been putting a lot of effort in to work on by all our staff, and really making quite a bit of progress in the quality of our work in all 4 of our priority areas. And this is work that's going to be tough to continue in the ways we've been doing it in a tough budget year. So now let me turn to the overview of the FY 2025 budget. So again, I've already said, difficult budget environment, and Gloucester's not alone in this, but many schools and districts are really facing some similar challenges. So first and foremost, I'm going to talk about just added tuition cost. So we expect added tuition to increase significantly, just as it has for the past 2 years. So $5.5 million in expected 2025 tuition costs. Okay, it's carrying forward increase that happened this year during this fiscal year. We again, for the 2nd year in a row, expect significant public placement and private placement tuition increases for out of district placements. And then on top of that, we anticipate growth, which is new placements and move-ins. We've had a growth in both of those over the past 2 years. And especially move-ins to a surprising degree. We had really been unusual and significant in terms of our increased costs. And then on top of that, every year we typically have a special education tuition contingency. That's for move-ins or, sorry, growth in services, expanded services that people need, that students need, maybe new placements that happen during the school year, or move-ins that also happen too. So we're trying to, as we always do, that's one of the two contingencies we have in our budget. We expect that cost will be $7 million, which is, I'll show the growth of that in one moment. We also expect significant growth in our out-of-district transportation costs. So we expect them to be $2 million this year. I'm sorry, FY25, and that is, and then on top of that is homeless and foster transportation. We are required to transport any students who are unhoused or who are placed in foster care. If they're placed in our schools, no matter where they're placed in terms of where they live or the living arrangement, we are obligated to transport them to our schools because they're our students. And typically those are cost shares, but there's significant costs for there as well. And then there are some referrals awaiting placement already, so we're including them right now. So we include those costs to be additional next year as well. So we anticipate out-of-district transportation costs to be $2.34 million, which is up. That is about triple from what it was 2 years ago. 2 fiscal years ago, FY22, sorry. So here's the growth from the current year, FY24, to projected for next year. So you see 4.5 million to 7 million, so an increase from FY24 adopted budget to next year of $2.5 million. And then transportation from $1.5 million to $2.34 million, $840,000. So the increase alone from last year to FY25 is $3.4 million in those two areas. Those are mandatory costs we're obligated to pay to support our students who require and illegally we're responsible for providing them a least restricted environment for a free and appropriate public education, as well as all our students. So then this is just to show, over the years, what has happened with tuition and transportation. And you can see on the bottom here, FY22, for total costs for 4.1 million. We project these total costs for tuition and transportation for out-of-district placements to be 9.3 million next year combined. That's a 7 million plus 2.34 I just talked about. That's growth of 5.2 million since FY22. So in those, so the growth alone is more than the total cost was to the budget in FY22. It's safe to say that that sort of growth has never happened before. Probably in any one area, very honestly. Special education. It's the main driver of the challenge we have right now into the fiscal year. Our health benefits also grow every year. There are really 3 drivers of cost increases, and that's special education costs, mandated costs, I should say, which includes special education, or contractual obligations in terms of salaries and also health benefits. So you can see here $400,000 increase. We expect this coming year for FY25, which is a bit larger than prior years. Gloucester does provide pay a very healthy, very generous portion of our employees' health insurance premiums, typically between 75 and 85%, depending on the health insurance plan an employee selects. And that's compared to others, which is 75% or below, and downwards as low as 52% in other districts. That's so you can see with that benefit approach and paying a very large percentage of the premiums, that also our costs go up every year. This year, we anticipate a little bit larger than the past few years in terms of percentage increase. You can see 6.39% there. So this is again a level services budget. Okay, so this is what if we're to provide the same level of services, support, staffing, instruction as we are right now in FY24. This is what the increase it would require, or the change, I should say, in all the departments, including facilities. That's our own facilities, not the city facilities. Elementary schools, O'Malley Middles, transportation, professional development, benefits, and the like. And the increase there is $6.1 million, so I'll go into a little more detail right now. And in terms of operating budget, we've been sharing this for the last few weeks for the FY 25 budget. These are the numbers. The personal expenses are set, means salary and benefits are 83% of operating costs. And ordinary expenses are 17%. When we were at the BNF meeting on Monday, the BNF subcommittee asked us to break out the ordinary, because ordinary is made up of supplies and materials, and it also includes district tuition and transportation. That's what we've done here. So the of the 17%, which is ordinary expenses in the orange there, we now divide that to orange and green. And of that 17%, 13% is special education added district costs. So now you have this, our total budget, 69% salaries, 14% benefits, 13% is added district education costs. And then 4.3 is everything else, supplies, material, instructional support, technology, et cetera, et cetera.
And a reminder that the ordinary in special education cannot be cut.
Right, we are obligated to pay that, exactly right. Yep. This is also BNF asked, well, of our entire budget, operating budget of $55 million that's proposed for FY 25, how much of that is special education budget? And that includes salaries, resources, materials, out of district tuition and transportation. And so the number is 19.5 million for special education out of a total budget of 55.9 million, and 35% special education. All other amounts of 65%. So then these are the increases we talked about. So that's in order to have level services next year, $6.1 million. That's broken out for the mandated services and programs, which includes special education, added district transportation for special education, which I've been talking about. Contractual obligated salary and benefit increases, we anticipate to be nearly 2 million, including the health insurance increase. Maintaining investments, so that's prioritizing our ESSER positions that we've added, which are sort of really across the board. That's on intervention, that's on behavioral support, that's on technology and curriculum materials. And in order to keep those, that we would take $800,000, which the grant is ending, the ESSER grant is ending, and need to absorb that in the operating budget. And then the annual payment for a person used buses, which we purchased last year as well. So those increases equal $6.1 million. And that would bring us to 55.46, which is a 12.3% increase. You can see that for a number of years, the schools were operating in terms of increases 2.2, really 2.5 to just below 3.0. The last 2 years, in large part due to our special education out of district costs, that's increased quite a bit. Last year to 5.85%, and this year 12.28%. Sorry, this should be $6.1 million in this cell here. It's a mistake. We always share, whenever we compare our practices, our budgets, our services, our contracts, we look at two different comparative groups. First, those which are geographic groups, so within the region here. And so here we're showing you our expense per pupil in our neighboring districts. And just like we have been for the last few years, we're sort of in the middle of the pack here. I've always said I think that's quite appropriate. We don't necessarily want to be the most expensive in any way, shape, or form. At the same time, we want to, we're making good investments in our schools. That's what Boston does. And so we want to be sort of in the middle of the pack here, which is, I think, appropriate, especially when you consider our surrounding communities and their nature and makeup.
Could that also be a reflection of the high cost of out of district tuition per pupil? Is skewing that number, meaning impacting our average, right?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, everyone's having similar increases. So, there's different makeup of students across these communities, a very different makeup of students. Some small towns, some cities, some regional. And so they're different. They're different drivers for the different budgets based on the community. So certainly, we'll talk about this more in a little bit. When you have more high need students like we do, 60% of our kids are classified as high needs, and the state is, supports this in the funding formula. it takes more resources to support those students, support kids who have higher needs. Typically, that's, it's more to educate them because you're typically providing more services and support. And then we also look at our DART districts or radar districts, which is a group of districts that the Department of Education develops based on similar demographic characteristics, similar size, similar ability to pay by the community. And you can see we're sort of higher in this group, which again, I think feels appropriate. But we're also, within, a reasonable range of the middle there. Yes.
Is this radar not the correct one? Or is it
Um,
DART?
No, that's, they
He's not.
switched from DART to radar.
And what does radar stand for?
Oh, boy.
Yeah. We're gonna miss time.
Whatever,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, well,
It's an email.
Okay.
I was just curious.
But at the same time, if they change the name, they also change the communities.
Oh, and they do change.
They do that every year.
Yeah, or every 1 year, every couple of years, yeah, they do.
So I'm thrown off by Peabody knowing their tax base compared to Gloucester. I can't believe we'd be compared. So I don't have a lot of faith in this chart. They have more. But they're.
Resource allocation of district.
So resource allocation and district action reports and what's for. With all due respect, this is a form which we can get you more information to look at.
It's okay, I don't.
But it's something that's used widely. And we also use it on comparisons for everything from academics and performance and as well as expenditures as well, so. So now we'll look at the current status of FY 2024 budget. And the reason for that is because of our offsets, meaning prepaid tuition, which we do done every year, and also circuit breaker, which is special education funding from the state, our annual budgets are linked. Okay, I'll explain that in a moment, right? But the help of current fiscal year, in this case 2024, impacts the next budget for 2025, and I'll explain that here. But I've been mentioning again and again, budget education, tuition and transportation costs are continuing to increase. Showing you how we've increased since FY 22 by over $5 million for tuition and transportation combined. The reason this makes a difference is because we've got two ways to support a fiscal year from the prior fiscal year that are allowed by law. One is our prepaid tuition. So if we have unspent dollars in 1 year, we can pay them forward for out-of-district tuition. And this has been a planned offset we've had for a number of years now, which meaning when we budget, we expect to have fiscal dollars available at the end of the year because we know we'll have costs we can pay the next year. We typically, in recent years, have been able to pay $1 to $1.25 million in advance, okay, every year, which lowers our operating budget the following year by that same amount. At the same time, the circuit breaker revolving fund is a revolving fund that we have access to because the state is providing reimbursements to districts, including Gloucester, for especially high special education costs. Any cost that a student incurs, for us to pay for student services that are above $51,000 are reimbursed at a certain proportion from the state. We are then paid to reimburse those monies, and we can pay those monies in the current fiscal year or the next fiscal year. So typically going into any fiscal year, we have between $1 to $1.25 million in each of these accounts, so to speak. Okay. We count on and have counted on about $2 million each year the past few years to pay down the cost of the following fiscal year. We don't have that this year because we're going to having to pay from both these. Also, I'll just use the word offsets during this year because we're increasing our cost for special education during this fiscal year. Those accounts are depleted down to about $200,000 or so. What that means is that we have $2 million less in offsets to apply to FY 2025. That is like saying, I think that's all the and that's why we've requested to earlier this winter, the city to have a special appropriation for $2 million to pay for those now, which then frees up dollars for next year's operating budget. That's part of the 6.1 we've been talking about. Okay. And so I'm gonna come back to this $2 million in a little bit in terms of the special appropriation, but I wanted people to understand the reason for that is as special education costs go up this year, we've had to pay for them out of these two offsets that we typically would be using for next year. Remember that $2 million special appropriation, I'll come back to it. So this is where we talk about the proposed level of funding and the difficulty and impacts it'll be causing on our schools and also our staff. So I'm going to talk about the path towards creating a balanced budget. So I mentioned a second ago with a $2 million special appropriation. But in essence, what we've been talking about is a $2 million special appropriation for FY24, and then a $4.1 million operating budget increase. That's where we get the $6.1 million we've been talking about for months now. Okay. We're looking at those two areas. Currently, the city has proposed so far at this point a supplemental appropriation of $1.5 million. That's $1.3 million plus $200,000. Okay. And then a $1.5 million operating budget increase. And it totals $3 million. A plus B equals $3 million. Now, as I've said, that we are to get level services support, we're looking for $6.1 million. Okay, that's the $2 million special appropriation plus the 4.1 in operating cost increase. Okay, but that's a gap now. If we get just $3 million from the city, that's a gap of $3.1 million. So we've got to look at what the impact of that is. Now, as I've said before, the vast majority of of any school district's costs, okay, are our people. Their most important investment. They're folks who make everything happen. Okay, but the challenge there is if the vast majority of your dollars and operating costs are in personal expenses, 83%, and then you have 13%, which you are obligated to pay by law. That essentially means that we look almost exclusively at the cost of staff when we need, especially looking at this magnitude. Makes it very difficult to continue our work, but also makes it very difficult on the people, our colleagues. Not just saying this is that typically reducing costs is typically found through staff reductions, which includes salary benefits. So we also talk, so now we're going to talk about the impact of what reductions of that scale will mean. And we're talking about core priorities at each level. First and foremost, across all three levels, pre-K, O'Malley, Gloucester High, is continue strengthening tier 1 core instruction and curriculum. That's the guaranteed curriculum every student gets every single day. Okay. We're doing a lot of great work across all levels, investing in high quality curriculum. Our teachers have been very involved in selecting that curriculum, and we're providing a lot of support. And teachers are providing a lot of support to each other in adopting and implementing that curriculum. We also talked about across all three levels, supporting vulnerable learners, that's special education, English learners, and tier 2 interventions. Okay, and then in pre-K to 5, supporting social, emotional learning, mental health. These are real priorities of our schools. At O'Malley, maintaining middle school house structure to support belonging and connection. As we all know, belonging and connection at O'Malley at middle school is important. Kids need to feel connected to their school and to each other, and they keep showing up, and they really do well in those middle years. And then at Gloucester High, continue to strengthen preparation and support for our kids as they get ready to and then move beyond high school. The challenge with cuts at this level is that the areas shaded will be impacted. These are core priorities. They're really important areas for us and for our students. But it's at cuts at that level, these areas will be affected. And yes.
Could you just explain what tier 2 interventions are?
Sure, yes. So these are non-special education support. They're typically small group learning that can happen in a classroom or pulled out of a classroom. It can happen at any level, but typically it's based on when teachers and our coaches and our staff identify students who need additional support beyond the tier 1 core instruction. That could be based on assessments. That can be based on everything from a unit assessment to a benchmark assessment. But typically, we're doing it through our data teams and identifying it. Now we're doing that at the high school as well. And that's really, if you think about students needing core and plus more, one of the real important ways to make sure kids are, all kids really, I should say, are moving achieving academically, learning deeply, and really making progress. You know, they're different from tier threes, typically special education supports, what tier three would be. But general education or special education students can benefit from tutoring intervention.
So just to sort of lay it out, these are the supports where if a coach or a teacher notices that a student is not making progress expected or is slowed down, the small group learning that they are pulled out of the classroom for at all levels, right? Where they get sort of that extra support
Yeah.
and tutoring
Extra time and construction.
to help them sort of move up more quickly.
And that's, you described the elementary, you know, at the middle school, it might be, our director of curriculum support or teacher teams or, a department may be doing that analysis and identification. At the high school, also could be teams, could be interventionists or, also departments on that, yeah, departments.
Like the math department looks at the data and decides what kind of interventions they might need. They might need extra practice, they might need a reteach, they might need.
So those things would not be available for students.
Not to the extent they are now.
But this does not impact IEPs.
Right, yeah. So just important, if we're reducing special education services or staff in any way, we can only do it in a way that's allowable by what's on the IEPs. And so that's, yeah, that's.
Before you go on, can I have you explain, under O'Malley, you have maintained middle school health structure. So I completely understand that cutting staff can lead to bigger class sizes. I'm curious why the word maintaining the structure is used as opposed to just saying maybe the classes are a little bigger, but the structure's still there.
Right, yeah.
This is, to me, it's scary, right? That-
Sure.
Parents don't want to hear that.
Right.
The school is designed to be houses. So when I see that, I'm like, wait a minute, no, but bigger class sizes, yes. So what do you mean by that?
Well, it's in jeopardy, you know, in the sense that, part of the middle school house structures, for folks who don't know, you know, we're broken up into houses and at each grade level, there are 2 4-person houses. That's the, you know, the core academic, areas, you know, math, science, social studies, and English.
Yep.
And then 2 2-person houses where you have, each of the 2 teachers teach 2 subjects. Okay, so it's essentially 10 teachers, okay? But that structure, it adds to belonging, you know, teachers, the same group of students shares the same teachers, you know. They can have, you know, same approaches, same, you know, community building and sort of stuff, you know, this and just sort of make sure everyone does. And that also though constrains the flexibility in terms of staffing and how many students you can have there, right? You're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna have a house of 120 kids, a house of 80 kids, and a house of, you know, if you're talking 4-person teams. So there's some flexibility in there that it purposely restricts scheduling and staffing. If you break apart the house structure, you have more flexibility in terms of fully loading all classes, the same sizes, okay? And then that's, if you have higher class sizes, you have fewer teachers, okay? Again, you know, these priorities are on here for a reason. You know, the middle school really believes, and I would agree with them, that house structure is, you know, crucial to supporting belonging connection. But it's something that we have to look at, if we have to have this level of cuts. Doesn't mean, at this point, you know, doesn't mean it's definitely going to go away, but it's something that we are definitely looking at. Need to.
Yeah, just real quick, Ben, it's easy, none of this is easy, but to see, okay, these are the things, you know, that could be affected. For me, the real thing is, what's the ripple effect of that? You know, you start extrapolating that out, well, all of a sudden a tier 2 learner becomes a discouraged learner. And maybe that has an effect on a whole bunch of other things, you know, whether that be attendance or whether that be, you know, all of a sudden that kid's not, you know, I'm getting the support I need. I'm here in school, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm getting support. And to take those away is, I think the ripple effect of that is certainly worth it.
And also,
Can't put that on the slide, but there's certainly plenty of stuff to.
yeah, I really appreciate you saying it that way, because there's a lot we can't put in the slides here, you know,
Right.
there are ripple effects upon ripple effects, you know, and I don't, you know, I don't say any of this light, you know, and I'm glad you bring it up, because another area that it can impact is, you know, a student who may have a disability, but because they're getting really high quality core instruction, and they're getting perhaps some tier 2 support, You know, that keeps them out of having an IEP because they can make progress, you know, because of our quality instruction that people are working with. If you do eliminate or diminish that tier 2 intervention, then it's harder for them, you know, obviously, and that might mean special education, you know, service for them, which is would be necessary and important. But it can happen really well where a kid who has identified disability is really making progress, so they don't need to be, you know, getting additional support, but this might lead to that, because that's fair, yeah.
I agree, can I add something?
Of course, yeah.
You know, there are also students who just need extra repetition and practice, and they don't have a disability. And when you, a special education team evaluates and looks at student testing, one of the factors are, did they get an effective instruction, right? So do we know that this discrepancy is because of a disability, or did they not have access to strong instruction? And if we're not able to provide a strong tier 2, it's harder to answer that question knowledgeably. So it affects the evaluation, the eligibility part of the IEP process.
And I'm not trying to be dramatic about it. I'm saying that's the reality of it. There's a ripple effect to, you know, this type of stuff.
And there are students that just need more time, and that doesn't mean they have a disability. They might just need it retaught. They might need to pre-teach. They might need, maybe it's just on fractions, because that's hard. And they just need tier 2 on that. So they don't necessarily need an IEP. They might need a strong intervention in whatever area we're finding that they need it.
So I'm gonna talk about 2 levels of cuts, $1 to $2 million and then above that. Okay, it's similar to what I shared last week, 2 weeks ago, sorry. So and this sort of just, you know, adds a little more detail to the prior slide. So preschool to 5th grade, you know, again, tier 2 intervention support. We've been working closely with special education and related services based on IEPs. We have the potential to move some related services onto grants. So if we move some services, support, or staff onto grants, okay, that reduces our operating budget, which is where we're having to get. Okay, the $3 million gap. And also instructional support and some curriculum initiatives. Okay, and we're well along in implementing Wit and Wisdom, but we've also been providing a whole lot of support. You know, teachers are providing support for each other. You know. But if we, you know, we're looking towards math perhaps in the future, that would be much more difficult. Another area on that is, you know, science. We're trying to do more science in elementary grades with support from our science coordinator, and that will be more difficult. 6th to 12th grade, again, tier 2 intervention support. As I've also already talked about tonight, we'll pause medical assisting and CBT exploratory launch until you know, a year from September. Specialists and electives, we're looking closely at those. Special education staff, IT services, moving services, related services to grants, looking at you know, 1 or more core academic areas, and then reduce recent increase in student support services, including mental health and social emotional learning supports and programming. These are areas we had a strong foundation in, especially student support services. Before I got here, and we've been able to build them up even further, both, you know, staff members, but also leadership and support. At the operation and district office, we are assessing IT infrastructure. We'll be delaying upgrades. We're seeking one-time funding for one-to-one infrastructure. That's our Chromebooks. Part of the one-time funding that's already the city administrators already identified will support our one-to-one infrastructure for next year. Then we'll be reducing administration and transportation costs as well.
Can you explain what reducing, how can we reduce transportation costs?
In terms of
No, never mind. I don't get it.
okay, right. I just want to talk into positions tonight. It's not that, you know, yeah. So that's one. Those are significant cuts. Okay. We don't have a gap of $1 to $2 million now. We have a gap of $3 million. Okay. And so if we have cuts between 2 million and 3 million, these areas will also be impacted. Okay. Specialists and elective, the GHS and O'Malley, such as performing arts, visual arts, business technology, physical education. Not all of those, but some of those may be impacted. Increased class size at O'Malley GHS. Specialists potentially in elementary schools include art, music, and physical education. Some of the social emotional learning behavior supports have already been put in place. And I mentioned how structure before. So again, we don't know if we're here yet. We are here right now. Just say that. Okay, whether we end up here, we don't know. We are still working on it. Okay. But this is, people do need to understand this at this point. This is the level of impact we'll be facing if we have a $2 to $3 million budget shortfall. It doesn't mean that all these areas, like in the first bullet, doesn't mean all those areas are affected. But we have to look at all of those and see where we can make changes. Okay. Doesn't mean all of our social emotional learning behavior supports go away, but some will. Doesn't mean all class sizes and teachers increase, but some are likely to, some will. Okay. We have to try to, this is what's very, very hard here is we're trying to make broad-based cuts, but this level of production does cut very deep. It's a very, very difficult level. So tonight I'm also going to share what this means in terms of number of positions. Okay, that's here. So these are anticipated cuts by school and what those would cost and staff. So we're looking at, you can see, different school sizes, different needs and profiles each school, different program each school. That's why you see variations here. Okay. But that we're looking at, if we're looking at 3.1 million because we're looking at upwards of 40 positions. You can see that in the right-hand column there, that those 40 positions actually don't get us into the salary cost up to the $3.1 million level. That's because you have additional savings from benefits, okay, for folks who were laid off, and then moving positions of grants, service and supports of grants off the operating budget, and then also some reduction in ordinary expenses, including instructional supplies and materials. But you can see across the board, preschool, all schools as well as the district, looking at reducing positions. The reason I'm not, we have to go through a process of informing people and whatever decisions that are fun or ultimate decisions are around positions, those are conversations between their supervisor and the individual employee. Okay. And what we never want to do, we always want to make sure that's a personal conversation. Okay, followed with the proper support. Okay, but can't be announced here first. Okay, that's why while people want clarity and certainty in some degrees, we're not yet in a position. Probably we don't know the final number, of course, right? We're working on that, but also we want to make sure that these are personal conversations that happen between an employee and their supervisor. So that gets us the timeline for notifying staff. Okay. There are a bunch of competing forces here that I want to explain. I also want the school committee to chime in and build on the conversation we had at BNF on Monday about the timing of these things. Okay. Let me talk through a few things. We have to continue to have budget meetings with school leaders this week, finalize reductions. Okay. We're reviewing the areas and magnitude of cost cutting with the school committee tonight. Okay. We've got to finalize the process for notifying staff next week. And that process has a couple of competing forces. One very important, there are a couple of important deadlines or actions we have to take in terms of the collective bargaining agreement between the GTA and the school committee. Okay, one is we're required to, and this is also smart practice, meet with GTA leaders, Gloucester Teachers Association leaders, to go over expected cuts of those teachers with professional status, typically teachers who have been here for more than 3 years. Okay. That's part of the process we're obligated to do, or need to do. So that needs to happen. We intend to have that meeting week of April 22nd. Okay. And then principals and supervisors inform staff and provide information on the process and next steps for each individual. At that point, you would be notifying any teachers with professional teacher status that whose position would be eliminated. Okay, it cuts this magnitude. Okay. And then also we have to, at the same time determine if further cuts are necessary because at this point, we're still working administration. We may have more information a week from now or 2 weeks from now, just as the timeline is playing out, that impact the level of cuts. Okay. At the same time, also in the collective bargaining agreement, we do have a deadline of May 7th that we have to inform professional teacher status by then. Okay. So even though as I described before, the budgeting process isn't complete, we may not have full information by then, we are obligated by that to do so, okay? We also do, now, we're not obligated the same timeline for teachers who don't have professional status or paraprofessionals or other staff, okay? But at the same time, I wanna implore upon you is that, there's a real balance here between, telling people the information we know when we know it. Okay, so people can be certain of what their status is, and waiting and doing that when we may not have all full information, okay? Rather than waiting, the other side of that is waiting until we're certain, which keeps everybody unsure and everybody on edge. Even though the vast majority of our staff aren't in any way at risk. So we were trying to balance speed with the best information we have, with obligations in terms of our contracts. At the same time, treating folks with compassion and well, so they know that they're just being eliminated. They know the process is for them if they're have a teacher with professional status, or they know that they need to look for a next opportunity. So I say all that, I hope that makes sense there, because at the same time, the school committee, of course, needs to be involved in the priorities, some of the decision making, and giving me information on what to do and when to act. So it's important, I think, tonight to see if we need to adjust this timeline for deliberation purposes, or if we can go ahead with this timeline so people know what to expect and when to expect it. So it'd be helpful for the committee to talk us through, ask us questions about process, about timing, and to talk through also the needs that you have in terms of deliberation.
I just have a couple questions that may be precursors.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So in this list of anticipated cuts and these positions,
Are you just
I'm
tell
on
me?
page 30, this one that's up here.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at the paper. Could these be from different units, or these all teachers?
Oh, sorry, thank you, that's important clarification. These are, across, they're broad range of cuts across all different types of positions.
Right.
Yes, very important question.
And just sort of in a more of a macro thing, if out of district transportation and out of district tuition is going up at this level this year.
Yeah.
Right, what's to say it's not gonna go up the same or more next year?
Yeah. So I think we've allowed for that in terms of our budget for this year. We looked at the last 2 years and we have the contingency, we've accounted for the growth that happened this year and have accounted for additional growth for next year. And so I think, we're doing it even, a more conservative estimate of what that would be. Okay, and we're anticipating costs to be greater than they have been the past 2 years.
Right, I thought the anticipated cost was something like $500,000 above what we already.
I can go back to this.
I'm sure you guys are doing it based on the best data, but it just feels like it went up so quickly this year.
So, let me just see if I get the comparison here. Gary, so this is a $2.5 million increase from last year's adopted budget.
Right.
Okay, last year's adopted budget was 4.5. Okay, so that's I can't remember what budget for increase my 23 to 24, but this is much more significant. Okay. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Just for the reason you said. Absolutely.
Right. And I guess I'll ask one question on the timeline is.
Sure.
How much flexibility? We don't, as far as the collective bargaining agreement is concerned, we don't have that much flexibility in when we notify teachers.
Yeah.
Whether or not we have the information, the final information.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, so a couple things. You're right. May 7th is not a date that we can change. The other piece is that, and just talking, as we talk to principals, in terms of planning this and working it out and the proper process and proper information. And one thing that came up today was at the high school, they're also involved in scheduling right now. And of course, staffing affects scheduling. Okay, so there's also, in terms of some programmatic forces as well, which I didn't mention until now, so I got a reminder. Thank you. So looking at the timeline here, this week of April 22nd is purposeful, okay? It's after we meet with GTA leaders, it's when we will have, we think, the best information we're going to have in terms of, which positions, okay? And then also there's impact of not only the staff impact, the scheduling impact, we do need to keep this moving. And I think this is the best timeframe, but also, I don't work in a vacuum and I've got to be responsible for the committee's needs in order for us to move forward together.
I just want to, first of all, acknowledge presence of the mayor here tonight, who's also on the school committee, and it's not an easy position to be in, but I think the thing for me is, I almost see it as dual track, like, okay, we got this template, we got this timeline down. On the other track is there's ongoing conversations going on with the city that could change the equation, so to speak. And I think you say that down here, week of April 29th, based on discussions with the city administration. Assuming that those discussions are ongoing today, tomorrow, like whatever we can do to find some common ground with the city, that's happening. And I don't want people to think, oh, the week of the 29th, we're going to sit down with the city, but those conversations are ongoing at all times. Yes, absolutely.
That's okay.
So, this is awful. This is real. So we're looking at $3 million in cuts. I think today, a good pulse, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm looking to the mayor too, and this side of the table as well, administration. The pulse that I'm sensing today is that we're at least at $2 million cuts. And that the last million is unknown. I think there's work still that the city is willing to do and numbers that are still to come in to finalize that conversation. I'm not saying we are gonna get to 3 million, but I see a little bit of flexibility in there. I don't know how much. If there's some ways to work with this year's budget for next year's one-time money. I don't want to give the public the opinion, and we have 68 people attending, watching this Zoom, members of the public, members of our staff. I don't want any of this conversation to sugarcoat like there's gonna be a happy ending here, because I don't believe there is gonna be a happy ending. There are gonna be cuts. There are cuts that are gonna hurt. And this is a place we haven't been in many years. But clearly, knowing the economics on the city side, because I reached out to some city councils and talked to them as well. I mean, the financial resources from the city don't appear to be there to make us whole at this day and time. So I don't want to give the impression by waiting 2 weeks that notices aren't going to go out, because it's inevitable that notices are going out. It's just likely a matter of how many. Because as you know, you look at that pie chart, there's no place to cut in ordinary. So it comes down to salaries and benefits. So it's not even like we have a choice. Even saving in office supplies means nothing to the predicament we're in. So positions are going to be lost. And looking at this timeline, I think it's a fair timeline. It's just a timeline we don't want to do, right? We only have one more school committee meeting in April before the May 7th date. So we pretty much have to make a decision or a nod or some direction to the superintendent on when those notices go out. And I believe that's part of our conversation right now. I don't know if we're going to come to an answer tonight. I hope we do. Because this is real. And I know there's people in the community that may think, oh, they'll find the money, or this is a ploy for negotiations, but it's not. This is real cuts that are going to impact students, impact staff, impact families. But at the same time, I don't want to scare the community as if it's the end of the world, because it's not. But these cuts are going to be seen and noticed, and there are going to be cuts. So I'm hoping that we do adopt this timeline. If for some reason there is a miracle before May, the week of April 29th, I'd be grateful for that, but I think we need to be on the path of preparing to cut $2 to $3 million out of the budget. And this timeline is appropriate to notify the cuts that we need to make our budget whole going into next year. And I don't mean whole with the money that we want, I mean whole with the money that we have to work with for fiscal year 2025, which is gonna be extremely difficult.
And we only have one school committee meeting.
We,
We have tonight and then the
And the
next one.
24th.
Yeah,
and I will suggest, that if there is new news in between the 24th and the 7th, we, can post a meeting and get together. This is one of those topics where special meeting is warranted. I know people have other obligations. Sometimes they plan around our meetings, but as long as we get forum here, we can have those meetings and have meaningful discussions on how to adjust with that. If we are able to.
And so at this point, we're gonna go forward with this timeline. I'll make sure all staff are aware of it tomorrow. Obviously staff are watching now, but I'll make sure that everyone has that update. And full update from tonight as well. And then, just so folks know in the committee, and I'm clear about this, is that we are obligated to inform professional teachers of professional teaching status. And we also will let those who don't know as well, because they're linked. Okay, so yeah. And there are also ripple effects, right? So in the sense that if we have to eliminate a position, I'm just gonna give it, I'm not gonna give it, if we eliminate a position that's held by a teacher with effective teaching status, okay, then they have the ability to take another position in their area of licensure. Okay, so you're not giving the very specifics here, okay? And that can affect a teacher who doesn't have teaching status. Okay, so we do part of the work with the GTA and with our HR and our principals is understanding those ripple effects. Okay, but we have to also tell the person whose job may be bumped into about the situation as well. So that's why we will be telling more than just folks who have fresh teaching status. I just want to make sure that that's clear to folks. Okay, we don't just tell people with fresh teaching status because of the May 7th deadline. Okay, we'll be telling folks. But we'll be focusing first on teachers and those positions in the beginning.
Have we incorporated any notices of retirements into
Yeah.
what this list is?
Yeah, thank you. There's of these 40 or so positions, there are some that we can move on to grants, okay? And then also some are just handled by attrition. So positions that become open through retirements or departures that we don't refill. Okay, so it doesn't mean that there's 41 positions here as a target, doesn't mean that 41 people will lose their positions. There's some different way to go about that.
but to be clear, that number's not big, right? So when you say go on
Right,
grants, you're
yeah.
talking 3 or 4 people, not 10 or 15.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly.
So
There's some ways.
41 might be 29, 30, 33, but it's not the majority by any means.
Right, and then also the other piece is that, a retirement, someone who decides to leave unrelated to the budget shortfall, that means our current staff aren't impacted by that, but that's a position that isn't filled. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is 41 positions here doesn't mean 41 people, are fully impacted. But it still is 41 positions that are lost, and that's an impact both on the people who, it's affecting, but it's also an effect across,
How we deliver education.
yeah, how we deliver education, thank you. So I don't wanna, I'm just trying to give the folks the whole picture, that those 41 positions are also, maybe a few on grants, maybe some are lost through attrition, or people moving on. But that's how we handle these sorts of things, is some of the positions are rebuilt.
So May I, a question on the process, oh, so Jeremy, you haven't spoken, okay, you never speak, so please speak.
Wow,
Hey.
oh, she said that. So slide 36, is this a ratio, like what, how is this figured out?
Sure, so this is looking at actual conditions, what can be done, sorry, what can be done in terms of, you know, priorities we're trying to hold on to, and, you know, where there might be, you know, but it's looking at each position, seeing whether or not that's a position that we can move on from, that we don't, I don't want to say don't need, it's not the right word, okay? But it's actually,
Least.
Yeah.
Least hurtful, but.
Professional
less
status,
hurtful.
I mean, is that taken into account? Is that,
sometimes it is, sometimes it can't be,
okay,
you know, that sort of thing.
yeah,
But looking at special education programs, I mean, start there, looking at, you know, it might look at where we added people recently, that sort of thing, it's another place we looked at. It may be looking at, you know, the particular nature of, you know, what the school needs at this point, that sort of thing. You know, there's some small differences in terms of priorities, in terms of, you know, different schools and elementary, that sort of thing. The high school and middle school, and just because they're the way high school and middle school are staffed and also their size, you know, they have an ability to reduce programs or you know, or not reduce program completely, but they might have you know, multiple people in a position, that sort of thing. So we're looking at really, I mean, that's a, you know, where we began was looking at percentage, the dollar amount. And then the principals and, you know, leadership work together to figure out how to reach that dollar amount. And then, as we got more specific information, was that dollar amount enough? We had to go back and look again. But the only way for the answer is that it's looking at each position essentially.
oh, okay,
And its place,
that's specific.
and its place in the school. Yeah, no, we looked at every position, its place in the school, its place in that, in the priorities and the place of what that school's trying to accomplish. And whether or not we could do without that position. You know, I think it's not as simple as I'm explaining it in simple words, but it's a, you know, it's a thorough process, it's very difficult.
And is the May 7th, is that for bumping and bidding, or is that set? And what's May 7th tied to?
Yeah, so that's for bumping bidding.
Oh.
Essentially. That's the-
I heard you say a little bit about this, but I didn't catch it all. So the May 7th date is for the Boston Teachers Association contract obligation.
Yeah, in terms of informing any.
Informing, yeah.
So in your contract with the Teachers Association, there's a reduction in force, you know, section article.
Right.
And it has, lays out pretty clearly, I mean, well, as clear as the contract language is, about the different steps I've got to take and the timing of them, sort of thing. And sort of basically the rules in terms of looking at the criteria for bumping and time, yeah.
But my question is,
Oh, okay.
know that.
Yeah.
So this list isn't all GTA.
Right, it's
members,
not.
right.
It is not, yes.
So my question is, the members that are in the other union.
Yes.
Collective bargaining groups. Is the intention from administration to notify them in this timeline as well? Cause I think it's only fair, I mean, this is where I thought I heard what you
Yeah.
said you were gonna do, but not sure. I think it's fair that. The messaging all goes out pretty much the same time. So that it's not leaving people wondering, right? If this is gonna be a date that we're gonna notify.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to notify as many positions that have been identified as possible, so that it's not a wait and wonder to find out if I'm ever gonna be notified
Yeah.
as well.
I totally hear you on that, and that's what we hope to do. It's to reach the May 7th deadline is a lot of moving parts.
Yep.
And so we really want to make sure we do that, do it well and accurately. So that'll be the priority. But I definitely agree and hear you on make sure we don't, like I said before, to start this, like, we want to make sure those folks who are affected know as soon as possible. So then they can, so then, so they can do what's needed for themselves and we can support them, but also that provides, for lack of a better word, certainty other folks. We don't want people who aren't at risk or in jeopardy to think they are, and then start looking at other places. I totally understand that, it's a natural reaction, an understood reaction. But that's the other reason for going, quickly. We want to go quickly, we want to go, at the same time, we want to be accurate and do well. We don't want to, we don't want to make mistakes that we have to, rewind from, pull back from, or clear up. That could be more damage.
Thank you.
So there are some more news here, okay, not news, but information, okay, both on just the level of, let's share it, both on, our revenue, okay, but then also on some ideas on where we can get some additional dollars, okay, they're out there. So, let me just continue here. Oh, sorry, the our high school.
I know.
Team. So
They've been very
this-
patient. They have. This is
Yes.
a pretty important conversation to not interrupt before now. If you want to take a break
Oh, I'm
now,
happy.
And let that happen. I did
welcome-
not want you to be.
I was trying to find
See
a
you.
break for them but we'll have a happy interlude.
I've known they've been here since they've been here, so Maria keeps me very well informed.
Yeah.
Okay, Emma and Joey, please. We would
Hi.
love to hear from you.
I'm Joey, I'm president of the executive board. I'm Emma, I'm the treasurer. So the seniors have 27 days left of school. Today we got a class assembly from Miss Menery and Mrs. Alves, and they did an amazing job running that. We talked about mandatory graduation practice, the senior picnic, class sweatshirts, prom info, and all the fun things that we'll be able to get to do towards the end of the year. Senior banquet, we have 325 people attending, and it will be April 24th at Cruzport. The seniors are excited for the centerpiece contest. Miss Clancy, we hear you won that 1 year.
I did. Well, I did, my son did.
The play Mean Girls was on last weekend and it was amazing. NHS had a lot of students helping with the power of play. And then we are winding down our hours due to the NHS inductions, which were very nice. We inducted 42 new students, and elections for their board will be after vacation. During the seniors last week, we will have a demonstration put on by Officer Scola for the go-karts and the driving awareness. And today, 65 students left for the Spain trip, and they will have a blast. The weather is supposed to be looking really nice for them.
The JHS Health Center's Youth Advisory Council ran an anti-bullying campaign during the show nights of Mean Girls and continued it into this week during lunches at JHS. Messages of kindness, making a positive difference, and affecting changes were the themes. Thank you to the teacher and theater director, Miss Jessica Ruggles, for inviting the Youth Advisory Council to collaborate with the JHS theater program to share a message of positivity. Coach L has some NHS students come in to help teach and train younger students on CAD, computer aid design, and on the equipment they will use. The girls' color guard placed second at the Peabody Tanner Classic Drill meet last Saturday, and the team won 4 awards altogether.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Do you
much
have
for your
any
patience and
questions?
for being with us.
Of course, thank you.
Everybody's Yeah, I don't know why. I'm there.
Okay, back to me, right? Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so now talk about revenue. And then go into some ways that we think we can try to close the gap. So let's share this. So first and foremost, just in terms of talk about one of the areas of funding that the city gets from the state is, as a foundation, chapter 78, sorry, chapter 78. Before the state gets to the chapter 78, it determines every year what any municipality's foundation budget is, and that's the amount they believe it costs to educate the students in that community, okay? Based on those actual students, okay? The state, through the foundation budget formula, determined that it would cost for FY25, it would cost Gloucester $2.3 million more than it did in FY24. Okay. Then what the state does is they break that into two different parts. They say what the state will provide of that 2.267, and they also tell a community what their required local contribution would be. What the state has said this year is that the state would add $318,000. Okay. State recommends, it's a recommendation, that the required local contribution increases by 1.9 million. Okay, that's equals 2.267. Okay. Now, so just to put this in context, all right, this is the chapter 70 funding. Chapter 70 state aid, the top row that the city's been getting since FY19.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Of course.
You did this same calculation, not calculation, but you presented this information last year
Yes,
also,
yes,
which was a significant number that that the foundation budget increased from fiscal 23 to 24.
yes, it's right here.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
no, that's chapter 77 funding, but that's not the foundation budget that you presented last.
Oh, you mean, so sorry.
So my point is
Okay.
that this number was big last year as well.
Yeah.
And we didn't meet it.
Right,
With our
so,
budget allocation.
yes, right, and I think I'm gonna explain that
Yes.
in a moment, happy to, yeah. So the top row here, really the middle row, the top white row, is chapter 70 state aid funding, okay? You can see 6.6 million FY19, okay? And then it goes across the board, okay? And you also see the increase in chapter 70 aid, okay, that the state gave to us, increase, right? So $95,607 was, $6,605,000, $95,000 more than the year before, okay? So these are the annual increases in state aid every year. You notice when we get to the green, something has changed, something significant, okay? From FY22 to FY23, we went from $6.9 million, the city getting chapter 70 state aid, to $9.7 million. That's an increase of $2.7 million, okay? What happened there was the Student Opportunity Act came into fruition, okay? I'll talk about that more in a second. Now, the same thing happened, another large increase in FY to this current year, 1.67, additional dollars came into the city. And then this year, FY25 proposed, okay, that's by the governor, okay, that may change, right? It's changing as the state, the House gets involved. A lot lower, $318,000, but still more than any other recent year, okay? So that's important. Student Opportunity Act is very important because what it is, it was the legislature and the governor updated the foundation budget formula to more accurately reflect the cost of educating students with the most needs, okay? Very purposely done over many years by the legislature, right? The Student Opportunity Act was purposely designed to benefit communities like ours, okay? Over time, the foundation budget formula had gotten out of whack. It wasn't accurately reflecting the need, the cost it takes to educate special education students, English learners, and economic disadvantaged students. Just the type of students who are increasing in Gloucester, okay? There are students, we do right by them, we need to do right by them, and whoever comes in our doors, we educate, okay? But the Student Opportunity Act is designed to, support places like Gloucester and support us well. It's important to say that the funding increases that came through the Student Opportunity Act not every community got them. In fact, a pretty small number of them got them. So this is just to add a little bit of detail to this, is that we also look at the change in city appropriation. So this is the change, the top row, number 1 here, across the board, which I've already shown you. That's the increase in chapter 7 state aid to Gloucester, okay? Again, 2.74 in FY23, 1.7 FY24, proposed for 18 this year, okay? The change in city appropriation, okay, what the city is contributing to our operating budget also changes every year. Okay, you can see that in FY20, it went up $95,000, the state aid. At that time, the city increased it by $300,000. So the city increased it by a higher number, okay? In FY21, they were close together. okay? FY twenty-two is the state aid increased by 154. The city contribution, the operating budget increased by 50,000. A big difference in FY twenty-three, 2.7 million, it went up to the state aid to Gloucester. At that point, our operating budget only increased by $100,000. So we're looking at 1.25 to 1.35 here on row 3, okay? Last year, the state aid went up by $1.7 million. At that point, the city increased our operating budget by more than it ever has, to 1.4, okay? And you can see number 3, that means, 1.35 plus 1.4 equals 2.75 here, okay? And then this year, the operating budget, at this point anyway, proposal is to decrease that contribution down by 1.25 back to $1.5 million, okay? Right, and then the state aid has gone up again. The challenge here is that the state aid is cumulative. When we get the 2.74, the city gets 2.74, it doesn't go away. It comes back to us again with the 1.7, okay? And I'll show that here, okay? I'll try to show that here. I've been trying to show this. I don't do it very well, but I'll try, okay? So if you think of the state funding increase with 154,000 in the amount of increase in dollars, okay, 154,000, that's this number right here. That's how much the state aid to Gloucester increased in FY twenty-two, 154,000, okay? And then here, this number 2.7 million, okay? But at this point, on top of FY twenty-two, you add 2.7 plus 1.7. That means if you compare FY 24 and FY 22, $4.4 million more came to the city though. You add $313,000 here, 4.7 came. Okay. At the same point, we're getting these increases in the city. The increase the city to the operating budget is these numbers. Okay. What I'm trying to say is it is true. It's not the whole story. Okay. But it is true that $12 million have come in on top of the FY 22 baseline amount since FY 22. Okay. At that point, above the baseline 1.2 is what we've been getting for a couple of years in a row at that point. These dollars are increases each year to the operating budget. That equals 1.5, equals 25. Another way of saying that, okay, is if you look at where we were in FY 22, the city was getting $6.9 million from the state, and they allocated $1.25 million to the schools to increase our operating budget. Okay, it's a healthy amount. We used it all. It was the right amount. It's what we needed. Okay. At this point, the city is getting $4.8 million more than they got in FY 22. They're allocating $250,000 more to the schools than they did in FY 22. Okay. Again, it's not the whole story, but it's an important piece of the story. And the Student Opportunity Act is designed to increase what the vast majority of our funding supports our students, okay, and our schools is our operating budget. Okay, Student Opportunity Act is designed to help us do that better. Okay, and so I guess I guess the question is, can we get this year or going forward more of those dollars applied to the operating budget? Because the biggest concern here is if we keep on spending, we keep on using one-time approaches, it's not affecting the true cost of our schools.
Can I say it again?
Yes, you can.
$22 million. So can you go back? No, I think it was that slide you just had. The increase over since 22. The increase of that $22 million over that same period was $6 million. 2022 to today's 2024 on that spreadsheet, it's an increase of $6 million. So that's all those school related expenses. Forget the crazy stuff like the barrier, which is grant funded. There's a lot of stuff in there. Debt service, custodians, maintenance to the buildings, painting to the buildings, roofs, things like that. So I just want to be clear that because you just acknowledged it's not the whole story. What I'm saying is not the whole story either, but between the two, that sort of gives the public a better idea. It wasn't just let's steal the school's money and spend it on, whatever, new benches for a state poor park. It was for things that the schools, the city was paying for during the lean years from the general fund. for stuff outside the school budget that is school related. Just want to make that clear. But we are still working together collaboratively to try to close the gap. But I just don't want people to think, well, it's simple, just give them the money that you already, that should have gone to them. It's not that simple.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's worth looking at and continuing to work on not only this year, but going forward.
Well, this is gonna be a Groundhog Day. You know, I mean, for the special ed, I'm sure, I don't think there's gonna be a big turnaround. So you're right, we do have to have the forward-looking approach to this. And pray that the House budget, I didn't get a chance to see if there were any big changes in what they were putting out to me.
$61,000 more in chapter 78 to Gloucester.
There we go.
That's,
Yeah, closed.
every little bit helps.
No, 60, not 6 million.
So I just want to acknowledge that laying this out this way is very helpful as people are getting more familiar with the pieces of what we've been talking about now for a couple months of both advocating for what, you know, laying out what we need and why we need it, but also the way the numbers work and having people understand state aid and this particular piece that we have focused on, because I've heard there's confusion that some people thought that we got money, but it went away, meaning, you know, we only had it for 2 years, and then we kind of go back down, and it was very helpful to let people know, no, this is revenue that stayed, like this is part of the ongoing, you know, dynamic of our finances on a city-wide basis. And also to kind of correct what I heard was maybe it's COVID related, but this is not COVID related. None of the Student Opportunity Act money has been COVID related. This is advocacy that went on for well over, you know, 10, 20 years to get this funding formula adjusted and more accurately reflect what it costs to educate students and to put pressure on the state to fully fund education as it's required in this, you know, at the state level in terms of you know, providing funding to be able to provide the education students need. So in 93, the formula was prompted by a lawsuit, right? Correct me if I get any of the history wrong, because I wasn't doing education then. So that's when the state did a big adjustment in terms of the formula and how much was funding, but it had taken them a long time to basically, you know, rally the troops to say, we can't do it at what we are being funded anymore. And this was yet the next effort to say, you have fallen so far behind that we just can't do it anymore. And you know, and which is why a lot of these population adjusting for those factors and the cost of those things like health insurance, I think who knows what they had for inflation on health insurance, 1%, and that it's sometimes gone up double digits. So it's just really important that those pieces that came into play in terms of the state estimating how much it costs is reflected through the Student Opportunity Act.
Can I also? Yeah, so one thing that I'm constantly sort of looking at, and we look at, you know, we've seen similar graphs. Like for instance, on slide 40, where it says annual chapter 78 received by Gloucester from the state. The thing that's a little confusing to me each and every time is, does chapter 70 funding say FY19, $6,605,077. FY23, we're up to $9,659,000. Is that, so does the state give that? The state's not giving that. The state is just adding
State's giving 9 million.
that year. So this year, the state gave 11 million.
Yes.
Yes.
And they're proposed to give 11,649,000. So it's not just cumulative. That is the amount this year.
Yeah, you don't get just the, that, you don't get the bottom row, you get the top.
Okay, I wanted to.
Increase.
Right. No, it's been presented in different ways and I just want to be clear that I was clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so the proposed chapter 70 funding received by the city of Gloucester for Gloucester Public Schools for FY twenty-five is $11,649,000.
Yes, and that was proposed because that was proposed by the governor, the House and then the Senate, they'll finalize it in the state budget, okay, which happens in, in June. But typically, it doesn't change that much, okay?
So 11, somewhere around 11.
It may go up, like we said, so the governor said 11.64 million, okay? The House budget, which just released today, I think, they said if you had $61,000 to that number, so that's 11.7.
So that is what that's their total, and we have a $6 million increase this year.
Right.
Okay. 3 million of which the city is, so I just want to understand, and I know there are other things that are going into it besides that number, but I just want to be clear and sort of lay it out a little bit.
And the bottom line is just an increase from the previous year.
Increase from the previous year. Well, I mean, yes, I mean, $318,000, right? Unlike last 2 years, which were, I mean, you can see, back, it's typically not a very big increase, okay? It's $100,000 about, okay? So, well, FY 25 is 3 times that, okay? And compared to FY 2024, it's a big change.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, this is not gonna, this is a big deal. Other questions, or I can move on to.
Just want to just say that, like the mayor was saying, I think we're all thinking this isn't gonna be a one-year problem. We gotta think of this as a long-term problem. And it's gonna take a lot of out-of-the-box thinking. And I think we got a lot of people here that are very good at that. And one of the things, that obviously sticks out is, I think you were mentioning it at a previous meeting a couple times ago, that we're having to transport out-of-district children so far that we need to get a waiver to allow that to happen, something like that. So there's a certain distance that we're required to educate. And some of those kids need to go even further.
Yeah, it's a very limited number of students we're talking
Okay,
about, but
yeah.
that's because placements aren't easily available anymore, right? Yes.
So, it's a big, cost for us, all this out of district and the transportation and seems like there's I don't know, we were discussing before that there's a business opportunity here for those types of facilities to be, for to build business development in and around our community. That I think a lot of other districts could probably utilize too as well. I mean, that seems like more of a long-term, solution, but if there were more facilities closer to home, even in the Gloucester School District, private development, what can we do to instigate that, either on the state level or?
Well, I think that's possible. I don't know much about developing those sorts of, schools really is what they are, schools, okay? But I do know that, one way to really help that is to continue to build our in-district programs.
Yeah, that's the other.
Strength we have, and then as we, see, as needed, or it is needed, to build other ones. The other piece, and then we're, been talking among with the Northeast Consortium, which is one of our, primary public placements, and also districts locally, is developing, sort of satellite programs for the consortium that are in districts that are close by. Something we could do, or another local district could do, that we would have kids be placed in, because we may not have a big enough cohort, but we have some needs. So I think that sort of development in-house internally for programs, but then also with other districts is probably something we're already, I want to, working on or considering, or, seeing if we can develop, I should say. And that's, I think, always, first of all, in-district programs are, for keeping kids here in our schools is the highest priority. And then a closer placement is always the next best. Right? So,
yeah.
So I think you're right that building programs can really help us financially in a lot of ways, but also can help us provide, perhaps better education closer to home.
More inclusive.
Yeah, and definitely right, and better opportunities for inclusion as well. So that's really a place that I think we've got to, go strong on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that would take some work.
Oh, yeah.
But that's why I'm thinking, you know, we gotta like think long-term and out of the box and see what we can do.
So the last part of the presentation is just some ideas that we're working on in terms of narrowing the gap. Just go here. So again, this is where we are. You know, budget request of 6.1 initial allocation, and then the gap goes to $3.1 million. Been through that already. So some ideas to not close the gap fully, but increase appropriations here. Close on the supplemental appropriation gap. So the supplemental appropriations is $2 million in FY24. That's this year, and then the operating budget gap is here at 2.6. So trying to close the $500,000 gap in supplemental appropriation and the $2.6 million gap. Those together equal 3.1, correct? Okay. So in terms of increasing the supplemental appropriation, or requesting, or one possibility here, okay, is transfer additional funds from the city stabilization account, $500,000. That's a straightforward, simple possibility, and that would eliminate the gap on the supplemental appropriation. Okay, and then looking at increasing the operating budget from the city's initial recognition. A few other ideas. There's ARPA dollars, which at this point are slated for playgrounds. So we've rebuilt and installed brand new playgrounds at Beaman and Plum Cove. Those are great. Used every single day by a lot of kids. We were hoping, or planning on adding rubberized surface to the entire playground. At this point, it makes sense to use those dollars if it can be for tuition and special education costs. That is an allowable use, but we're working with the city to see if we can do that. Okay. Another option would be for the city to buy a bus lease. We have a 2 years remaining on the bus lease. If the city was able to do that with one-time expenses, then that would open up operating dollars both FY25 and FY26. Okay. Another possibility would be for the city to take on the school resource officer. Right now, we pay for one of them. The city pays for two of them. And that would open up $60,000 in the operating budget. If those were all to happen, again, it's not as easy as me putting it on this table. Okay, that would be $860,000 onto the operating budget for FY25. Okay, combined, that would bring us the revised allocation of 4.36. So I'm sorry, it's the blue is what the initial city proposal was. The additional increase would be $500,000 on the supplemental budget. Supplemental appropriation, $860,000 on the operating budget. That would bring the revised allocation from 3 million to 4.36. Okay. That still has a gap to resolve at 1.74. Okay, so again, it's some ideas, some possibilities, some work we done on those, but those may be some ideas that we could use to lower the gap further. Let's eliminate it, as Melissa was saying, but some possibilities that we can look at. There are long-term concerns, actually, I think all of which have already been voiced tonight. If we do have to be conscious and careful about closing the operating budget gap to one-time dollars. We need to do some of that this year. That's essential, but we have to pay close attention to that. We don't do too much, and over time, make sure we continue to build up the operating budget so we have stability going back year after year. There are some other ways to also look at long-term stability, and that's for another time. But that could be a special education stabilization fund that has very strict controls on it, and also have a funding formula as well. But those are to be considered in the future. Just want to make sure that folks, that we're thinking about those things and trying to figure out ways to add some stability year to year. And then the next step is, so we've discussed the timeline. Schools and city are continuing to meet on this. The city is continuing to work on its budget. of course, as all city departments. And then, school administration staff is continuing to work on the process of identifying cuts and then make sure we are crystal clear and very thorough on that. As we begin to notify affected staff, in the week after vacation. End of presentation.
I'm just, I'm wondering if either of you know, Mayor or Superintendent, if the state is looking, or Kathy or anyone at this table, seriously at these sort of skyrocketing costs in out of district, I mean, it's happening all around the Commonwealth. It's not sustainable by districts. I know there's just been a huge increase with the Student Opportunity Act, but this level of increase, and also, obviously increased need, right? Since the pandemic, there's increased need on a lot of levels I imagine in every district. Some social emotionals, so I'm just wondering if there's any knowledge of whether the state is looking at this in any sort of more immediate way of how to provide some relief to districts and how to handle these skyrocketing costs.
Yeah, I certainly need to touch base with Representative Bronte and Senator Tar. Also MASC has the Day on the Hill.
Right, that's coming up.
I tried to look at the priorities for MASC and I couldn't find them on their website as in terms of what specific items they're advocating for. I have not seen this on their list, but I'm going to contact someone there as well. Just because I'm not finding information, because we truly need conversations around this quickly, because this is the second year in a row, right, with 14% increases, which, as you say, is unsustainable. Plus the magnitude of,
right.
I mean, people flipped when health insurance was going up double digits, and that impacted everybody. And this is impacting everybody to some degree also. As you say, also the increased needs in terms of percent of students, but the percent of students also is reflected in our student data, of which the foundation budget is built on. So that is being incorporated, that piece.
It may not even be money coming to us, it may be subsidizing out of district programs. Like it may be, it doesn't, it could work in a number of ways, it's coming from the state level.
Yes.
But it just feels like this is not sustainable, and it's gonna continue to increase.
Right, and they should be having the conversations at the
Right.
state level that we need to advocate for. Absolutely.
Yeah, the issue, well, not to simplify by saying the issue, if we just look at past history, ed reform in 1993, it took basically 30 years before they finally got Chapter 70 right.
Right.
And now, maybe not the best time to strike while the iron's cold, with this state revenues down.
Right.
But, I meet regularly with the senator and rep, and I'll see if there's anything cooking at the State House, but I kind of don't even think that's even on their radar that it's a concern. I mean, plus the state allows these facilities to raise their rates, they've approved them 14% out of whack, and it's kind of.
Well, that's the place where I'm wondering, like, there, right, not at the district level, but at that program level.
Yes.
The money has to come from somewhere.
Well, they're raising their prices and we have no ability to say,
right,
we're gonna go somewhere else. So,
That's an unfunded mandate.
I don't. I have a lot of priorities. One of them is not advocating Beacon Hill.
No, we're not asking.
I'm not asking you that. All I'm saying is it's not something that I other superintendents do, okay? And Master Superintendent School Superintendents does as well, right? I also think about, who has juice, who has power, who has voice, I think it comes in folks who are well-funded, well-organized, and have a lot of people, So, that can be school committees and superintendents, it also can be unions, and lots of different unions, I think, as the mayor said, I think a lot of powerful voices, a lot of loud voices to organize, to push the legislature to address something that affects literally every single community in the Commonwealth. But yeah, I think that's what it takes, you know, powerful organized voices.
Right, and you know, this is a perfect example of adjusting the circuit breaker formula to reflect more of a cost. I mean, I think, you know, it's a specific, it's not just we're gonna give you general money, we're going to put specifically into the program that helps offset these
Yeah,
costs.
absolutely, 100%. That is the program, and it's, you know, and we all need support.
And they finally fully funded it a few years ago,
Hmm.
and now they're behind.
Right.
Well, they're not behind it, but they're doing, but our costs are going.
All right,
The last part of my report is the update on the East Veterans School. I will put it together now. We'll pause while we go up these veterans too. So, so this is simply about sort of where we are with the project, with the building project, okay? I think we'll give an update on the closeout and some of the things, just as things wind down. Obviously, the school is in full operation in so many ways. But then there are also then just some specifics about just how we finish the project and eventually and ultimately how everything's not only handed over to complete the city and the schools to run, but also what things like warranty periods, okay, things like that, exciting things like that. So let me just so this is part of a presentation that was shared at the last school building committee meeting. All right, get this in. Do it. I'll just wait. Slide it. I'm getting the pinwheel of death here. So,
Somebody to make noise so they don't hear you rough. So
I'm ready to pass out, I'm sorry.
sorry for the delay.
No worries.
Try this. We won't get the great animation, but we'll get the.
Should be, so.
Okay. All right, thank you for your patience. So we are essentially now completed a 10-year process from concept, or not in concept, sort of like during the school building committee, they compared this to planning, conception, and having a child get to kindergarten. Okay, I'm not doing that today. Okay, but what in 2015 is when Gloucester started evaluating school facilities and plans for improvements, and they submitted to MSBA in 2016. Okay, 8 years after that, we moved into the building, or 7 years after that, moved into the building. The school opened on time. Okay, and now 2024, the building is fully turned over to the city of Gloucester. Okay, going over a few areas on that, but then catch up the date from just the most recent things that have been done or are being closed out and finished up the project. Okay. So this is the problem with the So we're gonna go over, so one thing, and this is not showing very well, the PDF, not the slideshow, but the point we're trying to make here is that this project had a lot of challenges. Okay, it was done and built during the most difficult building time of anyone's memory. COVID shutdowns, factory and port closures, lawsuits, multiple appeals, highest inflation in decades, material shortages, extended lead times, and also labor shortages. Okay, considering all that, we finished not only on time but under budget. Okay, and then for the last, and so those are the challenges. The successes are create a school, opened on time, finished under budget. We were able to add some things back into the project as we approach the end. We have an increase in grant funding from the state, which I'll talk about, and product funds are returned to the city of Gloucester. I do want to say to everyone right now that we'll talk about how this is under budget, okay? But these dollars for a facility in a brand new school building are separate from all dollars, and the borrowing related to that is completely separate from any operating budget, operating dollars, or anything we can fund, for the school. So this is going to be a little dissonance here, okay? Talking about the need for operating funding for us and the shortfall, and then this being under budget, okay? But to be clear and straightforward here is the two aren't transferable. There's no way at all to do such a thing, okay? The good news here is that this project came in under budget, which is a testament to the city's management of it, our project team, and a lot of hard work from a lot of school people and other folks across the city. And the result is a great school, a school community that continues to build itself and create itself, and a coming together of a lot of people that do great work every single day. One of the more recent additions were the very large 8x8 foot photos. This is a write-up of what's going to be placed there, so people will know forever the story behind these photos. One was done by the current principal, Matt Fusco, and his daughter. One was done by a GHS student, Halia Taylor, and one was done by a former East Veterans parent and parent extraordinary, Martin Delvecchio, who was East Gloucester parent. What's been happening on the project lately, okay, is a bunch of things. So we got our final certificate of occupancy in November, it was a while ago. The punch list, at one point there were 5,000 items on the punch list, there are 4 remaining. Just, and the punch list is a corrective one.
Did you say 5,000?
There were 5,000 in the punch list, 5,000 items, and that's everything from like, a ding over here. A ding, on some cabinetry to, a leaking faucet to, leaking, a leak in the roof perhaps, but it's from the smallest, tiniest thing, to a large thing, okay? But 4 items remain. Okay, that was 2 weeks ago. It might be done now. There's some remaining work, which I'll talk about in a little more detail. Commissioning is all complete. That's checking and balancing the building systems, okay? Owner training has been completed, including training on the lighting. One training that still needs to happen. So it's training on all the systems, HVAC systems, plumbing and that sort of thing, lighting, okay? There were 2 trainings with DPW staff on the lighting, including recorded sessions they can go back and use. We still need to complete training in exterior lighting. Closeout documents, operations, maintenance manuals, and all the building product warranties have been turned over. Okay, there's 1 warranty item remaining. Attic stock, which is that's a term I didn't know before this project. That's where we the spare materials and parts have been turned over to DPW. So that's like tiles that may be replaced. That may be lighting fixtures that may be replaced. That could be switches that would be used in the building. But they keep a number of those in spare. They're stored and controlled by DPW. So that's been turned over to DPW. The warranty period, folks are concerned about the warranty period. There's 1 year warranty period on the entire building and installations and workmanship. That gets fixed for a year. For the building, that was turned over to us on August 28th, 23, so the year from then. But for example, lighting controls weren't finally completed and commissioned until February 28th, so we have a year on lighting controls until next February. Playground painting, when that's completed, which we'll talk about in a moment, there'll be a year on that as well. So the lighting and playground painting was one of the last 2 things to really be completed. The financial closeout is happening. That takes the longest time of anything, because it's also working with MSBA. That's over 50% complete. And then we continue to do third-party submissions in terms of mass save grants, lead submission, okay. I think we're going for gold lead status. Those third-party submissions, that's sort of paperwork and applications which continue. And then the contract evaluations are all complete as well. So these are all the things that not many people think about, except for a project team and some folks in the city and myself, and maybe it doesn't bother them. But that are all happening and all part of completing the project. So the other piece here, so the last two things that really are outstanding are actually the three lighting controls. Those have been fully checked out, they're operating as designed. The city now has control to adjust those. We've adjusted those recently, and all I haven't heard recently, we're now having the building almost completely dark at night. So before, while they were still in the process of making sure the systems are running properly, we got the stairwells lit up at night. We had the overnight, that is, and those are very bright into the community. The main sort of foyer was lit up until 10 p.m., but then also was sensitive enough that it went on. And even though it was down to like 25%, it's quite bright in there, so people could see it late at night. But that has been adjusted. So at this point, people should see very few lights on inside the building at night. But our custodians are there until 10 o'clock. So right now they're all on timers and they go off at 10 o'clock basically. Okay. But now it's under control of the city and working as expected. But something can be adjusted if necessary. Some of the financials here. So MSBA reimbursements to date have been 24.5 million. 23 of those submittals have been paid by the state. So we've gotten 23.5 reimbursed by the state back to the city. The original maximum grant that the state was going to give to the city, okay, was $25 million. So we submitted for 24.5 of that. The city share of, this is originally, the city share originally was expected to be $39.7 million, okay. We have come $3 million under budget, okay. But we're getting the maximum reimbursement from the state, which means that coming $3 million under budget means that the city share decreases. So instead of $39.7 million, the building cost $36.7 million. But we're also now eligible for an additional grant. The state made available to projects like ours, being built with MSBA grants, made additional dollars because of the inflationary pressures, timeline pressures that were all related to COVID. And we're eligible now for $5 million more, okay? Which would reduce the city share to $31.7 million, okay? And save from $3 million in savings to $8 million in savings, okay? It's pretty remarkable, I believe, to build this building for a city cost of just under $32 million.
Absolutely.
Okay, folks who've been in the building know it's fantastic facility, it's fantastic school, it's a beautiful school. I mean, it's light and bright and lots of kids staff every day. But this day and age, to build a building for $32 million, that size of building, which will be here for many, many years, is actually pretty remarkable. That is, it's not a small amount of money, but it can be much, much more expensive. And that's the testament to this really good management, really good project team, well managed by the city and multiple city departments. And then also our great project.
During his supply chains.
I was just gonna say the same thing, during the worst, most difficult, expensive time to build, and we got all that amount.
Yeah, it's really
Kudos,
remarkable.
Everybody.
I do wish that money could be transferred to the operating budget. It cannot be, okay? It really can't be. I don't say that.
I was gonna ask.
No, I know. I'm getting ready to present this. We've been trying to do this for a couple of weeks now. I'm thinking, this is really confusing to people, okay?
Yeah.
But they really are, the financing and funding, I don't, they are not connected anyway. Thank you.
It's money that does not need to be borrowed.
More like a
Yeah,
rebate,
I
It's
think-
not
right?
money that we get back. It's money that does not have to be spent.
It's like a-
Yeah, that's a better saying. It's not money we're getting back. It's money that we didn't have to spend. Right.
And don't have to pay interest on.
And not borrow, not pay interest on, okay?
Which is taxpayers.
Taxpayer savings.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you to the taxpayers that supported the
Yes.
school.
Absolutely.
And the staff and everybody else who supported it.
And that is, that is 100% thank you to the city.
Sure, the thank yous.
Sure, go ahead.
Because I was lucky, and the new members of the committee were lucky to swoop in the last, quarter. And right, like the last 2 outs of the last inning, and just, get our name on the plaque for being here, and, there was some involvement with my administration, but big shout out to Safathia, to John Pope, the members of the school committee over the last several years.
John Dunn made this happen.
John Dunn,
Yeah.
the magic wand,
Yeah.
and as you said, it was to the voters who voted for the debt exclusion, so.
A couple of things go on this, but I do want to say, you mentioned John Dunn, so, at our last school building committee meeting, thanks to Brian Hermatka, our product manager, we took a moment to recognize John Dunn and just remember him for all the work he did on the project. As our public meetings are, that one was recorded. I was able to share that recording with John Dunn's widow, and she was very appreciative of that. But I just want to say that because, it was a moment that was sort of impromptu, but just, anyway, I know she appreciated it, so, but that was because Brian and others on the committee there really took some time to appreciate just a hell of a person. Yeah. To wrap up, on this, a couple more things. Just what's left for the project, a few things, I mean, what's left for the building, okay, the school continues and will for decades upon decades. Just a few more things here, so final tasks, some final work, some playground, work there in terms of, the painting, we believe that's gonna happen in over April vacation, depends on the warmth of next week's weather, okay? So it may happen next week or in May. A couple modifications in the playground that are anticipated either in April or June. Just some minor changes on that. The 10-month walkthrough will be completed with DPW, our public schools, the commissioning agent and project team. And that's a sort of a final review of all building operation that happens in June. And then any corrective actions that happen, and then the final commission report. I'm sorry, the 10-month walkthrough has happened pretty soon, I believe. But then the final commission report is June 2024. Again, commissioning is sort of the quality review, quality check on all systems and the building and the quality of the work. The full building takeover by city DPW, which includes basic facility cleaning and maintenance. Okay, that's all currently being done by DPW staff, and then preventive maintenance and repair. And new repair items are all being done by W2 Rich right now. That's taken over preventive maintenance and new repair items are taken over by DPW in August. And then the full plant will close out as well. That happens approximately a year after the final invoice. Okay, so we're still about a year away from that, at least the full plant will close out with MSBA. That's just the blocking and tackling of the last few items. But I want to make sure everyone got the full report on the financial information, which is of course very good news.
It's headline news.
Headline
So
news.
whoever's gonna put some headline out there, it really does need to be in the newspaper.
Great.
It's terrific news to acknowledge and have people know that they voted for something that it's gonna cost less. The other last thing I want to say about the MSBA, which I tout all the time because of their processes and everything they bring to a project, but then talk quickly through the fact that all of their subcontractors get reviewed. So there's a feedback for the MSBA to know who's doing things well. And if they don't perform, they consider that, right? And it just makes every project going forward, more successful because these people know what the standard is in terms of delivery. So we benefit greatly from that as well.
I just want to add one more thank you to the building committee.
Oh, gosh, yes.
All the time that members, Kathy, Superintendent, Amy, that put into this project, very commendable. So on top of all the work that we do, which takes up a lot of our day, adding building a school of that size and the work that went in, the detail that went in, that's a huge commitment. And pat yourself on the back.
School committee as well.
Yeah.
The school building
It
committee.
was a good project. It was a good project. Well done.
That was the first year.
Really?
I was there when the statement of interest, that was my first year, the statement of interest, and you were principal, I expect. That was my first year.
Wow. And helped the school come to the conclusion that we were gonna morph together, and you did a lot as a principal and on the committee.
You all did.
Great. Okay, next item of business, is, we're at the 8:45 mark. Is the subcommittee reports of building and finance from April 8th, turn it over to Melissa.
So from a very high level, and not talking about too much of the budget anymore, because I think we've talked it through tonight. Our monthly report of special education, our special education budget did increase by $110,000. The reason for that is we have a new student that moved in. We have a new student placement, which makes that number smaller of the kids that were waiting. And there was an assessment, a 45-day assessment student that had to be funded out of that. So it was a total of $110,000. We then discussed the extraordinary relief. As you know, we've been talking about how if there's the cost of more than 25% of the circuit breaker, there's a fund that we can apply to. So know that the amount has been submitted to the departments required, but it's only for the money spent through March 8th. So in other words, any increase after March 8th does not qualify under that extraordinary relief program. Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you're on top of this. I think we're looking at up to a $340,000 reimbursement. However, that's if the money is available. As you know, we've stated it depends on how many people apply for that fund. So I'm not sure what the ratio will be in the end. But we're fingers crossed that that's the amount that we'll get. But we will find out in May, which is not too far from now. We did the budget transfer, the $40,000 budget transfer, which we approved in the consent agenda. That transfer helped with a humidity control project at the vocational manufacturing program. It's helping with the O'Malley kitchen vents, the air conditioning for our nurses and the ventilation. So that's what that transfer was in regards to. And the best part of the night was getting the budget book that we've been talking about that's going online, and I'm looking to the superintendent. Did we put this online yet?
I think so. I got an email back today, something from Tara, and I can't remember what it said.
Okay.
I'm looking.
Yeah, it's gonna be posted tomorrow.
Okay, so great opportunity to get to know our budget on an online interactive platform. And what's great is it's a live document, so it will change as we change. This is the budget that we submitted and are discussing now. And those figures will change, but it's a great look at to learn the numbers, but the pictures that are included as well. Stephanie Frontier did an incredible job in the office of Gary Frisch. I can't say enough about how the quality of work that came out for this. And I think people who go online and look at our budget and want to know numbers are going to be very impressed with what will come out hopefully tomorrow morning.
Yeah, well, just want to make sure we have a proper sort of,
Introduction.
number of folks, so, folks in the city can access these things.
So when it's on our website, I believe in the beginning, it's going to be in two spots. It's going to be right on the front page, the initial page of the website, but then I believe it will be in the budget operations as well.
Right.
Because it's new, we want it front face.
Great.
But then going forward, it will always be under the budget. Great piece of work to look at. And that's the end of my report, because the budget we've discussed sadness.
Okay. All right, we will move on to action, and we have some grants to accept. I move that we accept the Gloucester Gloucester High School Wellspring Mentoring Project Grant, year 3 of 3, in the amount of $30,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept the Gloucester Education Foundation National Arts Honor Society Beeman Art Buddies Grant in the amount of $1,040.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept the fiscal 24 special education 240 grant, increase to the grant in the amount of $4,613. Any discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept the fiscal year 24 Title I 305 grant. The increase is the amount of $403, and I so move.
Second.
Say aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept the fiscal year 24 early childhood 262 grant increase of $165.
Second.
Oh, that's good. I'll do that. All in favor for the 165?
Aye.
Okay. I move that we accept the fiscal year 24 Title II 140 grant in the increase of $1,373.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then we have one donation to accept, and it is, I move that we accept a donation from the Institution for Savings for the Gloucester High School 2024 senior class in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
Thank you, Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that concludes the regular business, in open session tonight. We are going.
Wait, I haven't, like, new business.
Oh, one new business.
So I would like to refer to program, because we know I like to do that. So meeting with the vocational, technical advisory groups tonight. I was fortunate to sit with one of our infamous Jack Porter and talk to him about the automotive program. And we were talking about the amount of cars that are being serviced by that department for those that take advantage of the program that we offer, where you can bring your car in, purchase the parts and get your car fixed. And they were inquiring about a program that we actually had at Essex Tech of how they can charge a certain percentage for those services, like a 10% of what the service would be. And put that in a revolving account, which can fund some of the products that they need to run that program. And they took it a step further and talked about if they were able to purchase the parts, they can get the parts for a better price than the person who brings their car in, and they can mark that up a little bit and make a little bit off it. So it's kind of a revenue opportunity for vocational programs. So I was hoping to refer that to program to discuss with administration and see where that can go. It is common in vocational schools. I don't know if you are aware at your school, if you have a program like that at Lynn Tech.
I don't think it's savings, but all the labor is free, so
Yeah.
even if the parts were more, it would offset the cost. The lack of labor would offset the cost,
Right.
so.
So there is a revenue opportunity to help fund supplies, right? They said what's the stuff they put on the ground when there's an oil leak and stuff like that? They go through Speedy Dry, they go through bags and bags of that, right? So if it funds that, it's a win-win.
Sure.
And they also said it was a good way for the students to see what 10% or 15% or whatever you come up with of the actual cost would be, because it would encourage them to know what kind of money they can make in the industry if they went to work. So I refer that to you.
And would that, after program, then go to BNF since it's a financial thing?
Well, I think setting up accounts and stuff like that, I think would be a combination of things. But to actually write the policy, and Essex Tech has one, so you can look at examples, technical school, vocational schools will have.
Would that be a policy?
A policy procedures, yeah, something. I mean, we would have a policy to say that we're doing it, and then administration would come up with the how.
Right, because we numbers.
And the numbers, and then the secure finance part of it to make sure that it's the right oversights. Plus, we have a bank in the school too that could help with stuff like that too. Union Savings Bank is in our schools. So anyway, I'm dropping that in your lap.
Thank you.
And Jack Porter is available for assistance to come present and talk about what he thinks could work too.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, program.
Okay, so I move that we go into executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of Mass General Law 30A, chapters 21, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Gloucester Association of Educational Support Paraprofessionals, Gloucester Teachers Association, Massachusetts Nurses Association, Teamsters Local Union 42 Bus Monitors, Teamsters Local Union number 42 Food Service Workers, AFSMI B and AFSMI C. Have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please, Rick.
Mayor Verda.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. McKean.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
And Ms. Prince.
I didn't say yes, but yes.
Oh, okay, I got you. Sorry, I thought it just skipped me.
The last time.
All right, we will only be coming out of executive session to adjourn, so this ends this part of our meeting. Thank you for those who stayed along with us.